Hello everyone. I am the storyteller. Tonight, I'll tell you a story that hums with electricity, the kind you feel in your teeth before a storm breaks, an account not written in books, but etched in lightning scars across the pavement of Times Square. Most folks pass through that place without a thought, dazzled by the neon, deafened by the noise. They don't notice the air tastes like copper when midnight comes. They don't hear the static whispering in the screens. But I noticed. Because I was there. It began after my life had already buckled when debt and bad luck pressed me flat, and the only work I could find came with strange pay and stranger rules. A night security job in the heart of the city that never sleeps, where silence is not absence but warning, and where the sky itself is waiting to speak. Relax, let the glow of the billboards wash over you. Feel the pulse of the crowd thinning as the hour grows late, and learn what waits above the lights when the rules are broken. And whatever you do, don't kneel. After I lost my job with Coned, I thought my life was done. You ever try finding steady work in New York without connections, a degree, or money in the bank? I was weeks from sleeping on the subway. The severance was gone, unemployment tied up in paperwork, and my landlord had already started sliding those little pink envelopes under the door, final notice. So when I saw the posting online, night security, Midtown Manhattan, $48 per hour, paid weekly. Must be comfortable with odd shifts. Safety guidelines will be provided. I thought it was a scam. But desperation has a way of sanding down your skepticism. Application was bare bones. No drug test. No references. No ID check. Just my name, phone, and whether I could start immediately. They called me 10 minutes later. A woman with a clipped voice said, "Report to 1515 Broadway, service entrance. Ask for Mr. Calhoun. He'll provide the guidelines you'll need." Not rules. Guidelines. Times Square never really sleeps, but it does get stranger at night. Tourists thin out, neon signs flicker in sickly blues and reds, and the whole place smells of wet metal and fried grease. Even with all the noise, there's a kind of emptiness underneath, like the city's heart stops beating when the sun drops. The building was one of those glass and steel giants that look like they were made to house gods. 40 floors, electronic billboards on its face so bright they stained the clouds pink. I slipped in through the service entrance, past a half-dead fluorescent bulb that buzzed like a hornet. Mr. Calhoun was waiting. Tall, pale, with a suit too nice for midnight. His smile was polite but hollow. "You're on for the night shift," he said, handing me a laminated card. "Follow these, and you'll be fine." The card read, "Night Guidelines for Security Staff 1515 Broadway. 1. Every hour on the hour, walk the lobby perimeter clockwise. Do not stop walking until you've completed the circuit. 2. If you hear thunder while inside the building, count to 10. If lightning flashes before you reach 10, step outside and look directly at the sky until the next thunder roll passes. 3. Between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m., do not use the elevators. Always take the stairwell, but never skip the 23rd floor landing. Stop there for exactly 30 seconds. 4. Should you hear footsteps behind you, do not turn around unless you smell ozone. If you do smell ozone, bow your head before turning. 5. Never touch the lightning rods on the roof. They are not grounded in the way you think." That was it. No explanations. I thought it was theater, some corporate hazing ritual. But the pay was real. I signed my name on the timesheet, pocketed the card, and started my shift. The lobby was cavernous, polished marble, glass walls showing Times Square in all its neon sickness, echoes that turned every sound into something twice as loud. My footsteps slapped against the tile as I did my first circuit, clockwise like they said. Nothing unusual. But on my second circuit, the building shuddered. Just a low vibration, like a subway rumbling beneath, though this far west there shouldn't be lines running right under. The LED boards outside glitched for a moment, showing not ads but pure white light like lightning frozen mid-flash. I laughed it off. Sleep deprivation, caffeine jitters. Then came the thunder. It was faint at first, muffled by glass and steel, but it was thunder, and there was no rain in the forecast. I remembered the card. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3. At 7, the windows lit up with a jagged blue-white flare. Lightning. Inside my chest, something tightened, like static electricity crawling over my lungs. The guideline said, step outside. Look directly at the sky. It felt ridiculous, but I pushed through the service door and craned upward. The sky above Times Square was black, but in the blackness were veins of light, crawling, branching, writhing. Not lightning like on TV. This moved slower, deliberate, like fingers scratching across the heavens. The thunder rolled again, and when it did, I swear I heard a voice in it. Low. Commanding. Old. Not words. Just sound shaped like speech. And when it passed, the neon signs flickered back to life, and the sky smoothed into its normal polluted haze. I stumbled back inside, skin prickled, heart pounding. That was the moment I realized the rules weren't jokes. Around 1:15 a.m., I forgot the elevator rule. It was habit. My legs were tired, my mind distracted by that thunder voice. I pressed the button for the 25th floor, thinking I'd check cameras from the control room. The elevator groaned. Lights flickered. It stopped on 23rd. The doors opened to a floor that wasn't finished. Bare concrete, hanging wires, scaffolding. I knew this wasn't real. I'd been in the building before, when Cone did maintenance. The 23rd floor was offices, not some construction graveyard. I stepped out. And then I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Slow. Heavy. The sound of boots dragging stone. The rule, don't turn around unless you smell ozone. The air smelled like dust. Concrete. Nothing else. The footsteps came closer. I gripped the laminated card until it bent in my hand, whispering to myself, don't turn. Don't turn. Don't turn. The footsteps stopped just at my back. Then the smell hit sharp, metallic, electric. Ozone. I bowed my head, heart in my throat, and turned. There was nothing there. But the concrete wall in front of me was scorched. Blackened lines spidered across it in a pattern I almost recognized. Like a bolt of lightning frozen in stone. And just faintly, beneath the hum of the dead lights, I heard laughter. Deep. Rolling. The sound of storms mocking me. That's when I knew the guidelines weren't for my safety. They were offerings. And whoever or whatever was laughing in the dark wanted more. I didn't sleep after that first shift. You try riding the A train home at 4 in the morning, still tasting electricity in your lungs, your hands shaking like you touched a live wire. The car was empty except for a homeless guy curled up under a blanket. Every time the train clattered over the tracks, I heard thunder in the sound. By the time I reached my place in Queens, my nose was bleeding. Just a thin red line down my lip, nothing dramatic. But when I went to wipe it, I noticed my fingertips had black smudges like soot. Like that scorched wall on the 23rd floor. I sat on the floor of my apartment until sunrise, staring at the laminated card. Not rules. Guidelines. When I came back the next night, Calhoun was waiting in the lobby. He looked at me with that same pale, polite smile, but his eyes searched me, like he could tell I'd brushed against something I shouldn't have. "You took the elevator," he said. Not a question. A statement. I froze. "How did you?" "The smell," he cut in, like that explained everything. "You're still alive. That means you remembered the bow." I clenched my fists. What the hell is this place? What's on that floor? He adjusted his tie, calm as a priest giving confession. The guidelines are older than this city. Older than this country. They're the only reason we can stay here, under his sky, without being burned away. His? I asked. Calhoun's smile widened. Don't you hear him in the thunder? I wanted to walk. To tell him to shove this job where the sun don't shine. But then I remembered my rent, my overdue bills, the gnawing pit of poverty that had been swallowing me whole for months. So I clocked in. By the third night, the lobby walk felt almost like ritual. On the hour, I'd make my slow clockwise path around the marble floor, tracing the edges of the giant glass walls. At first, I thought it was just superstition, a circle to make you feel safe. But then I started noticing things. When I walked clockwise, the reflections in the glass kept pace with me. Exactly. Not ahead. Not behind. Like obedient shadows. But once, just once, when I paused mid-circuit to tie my shoe, I caught my reflection lagging behind. It stood up 2 seconds after I did. Its mouth opened. And the glass hummed like a storm far away. After that, I didn't stop again. Around 2:40 a.m., the building shook with another storm. No rain outside. Just thunder cracking like someone splitting the heavens with an axe. I counted. 1, 2, 3. At 6, lightning split the sky. I sprinted for the door and looked up. This time, the light didn't fade. It pooled above Times Square like molten silver, gathering, trembling. And in that silver mass, shapes formed. Not clouds. Not lightning. Faces. Dozens of them, mouths open in silent screaming, eyes wide and empty. They shimmered for only a second before dissolving into another thunderclap. And in the roll of it, words. Clear this time. Bow. I dropped to my knees right there on 43rd Street, the wet asphalt soaking through my pants. Tourists were gone. Taxis were gone. I don't know if time froze or if nobody noticed, but I was alone under that voice. When it faded, the square lit back up with its usual neon sickness, and a bus trundled past like nothing had happened. But my ears rang for hours. The rules said I had to stop on the 23rd floor landing when using the stairs. I hated that part. That night, I trudged up the stairwell, my flashlight beam wobbling across concrete steps. At the 23rd, I froze. The landing was different. Yesterday it had been bare concrete. Tonight, there was a mural across the wall. Faded paint, chipped plaster, but clear enough to see, a man with a beard, holding a bolt of lightning in his hand. Zeus. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was, straight out of some textbook illustration, only older. Cruder. Like a child had drawn it, but with the conviction of someone who'd seen the face of God. I counted 30 seconds with my back against the cold rail. The mural seemed to shimmer in the corner of my eye, but I didn't look at it directly. When the 30 seconds were done, I bolted up the stairs, lungs burning. Halfway through the shift, I heard them again. Footsteps behind me. The air was clean. No ozone. I forced myself not to turn. The guideline said don't, and after the elevator incident, I wasn't about to test that twice. But the steps came closer. Heavy. Deliberate. I could feel the weight of them pressing the marble behind me. And then, just at my shoulder, the ozone smell hit like a slap, sharp, electric, metallic. I bowed my head and turned. The lobby was empty. But one of the glass walls was cracked. A perfect spiderweb fracture, radiating outward like a lightning strike. And I swear, just faintly, I saw an eye looking through it. Not human. Too big. Too bright. It blinked, and the glass sealed itself with a hiss. On my way out at 6 a.m., I noticed something taped to the underside of the security desk. A scrap of notebook paper, yellowed with age, words scratched in shaky pen. The guidelines don't keep you safe. They keep him entertained. Don't miss a step. I read it 3 times before I stuffed it in my pocket. And as I stepped out into the gray morning, thunder cracked over Manhattan. No clouds in the sky. Just his laughter rolling through the steel canyons of the city. By the 3rd week, I'd memorized every inch of the building. The polished marble lobby, the endless glass walls, the stairwell that smelled of mildew and lightning. The guidelines had carved themselves into my brain: walk clockwise, count thunder, bow before turning. I lived by them like scripture. But the problem with scripture is, once you believe, you start looking for the holes. The spiderweb fracture I'd seen the other night. It was gone. Not repaired, gone. The glass looked brand new, seamless, not even a smudge where the crack had been. But at certain angles, when the neon outside flashed blue, I could still see the outline of it. Like a shadow trapped in the pane. Sometimes it blinked. On my 4th week, Calhoun introduced me to another guard. Said his name was Ramos, mid-30s, skin tight with stress, eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in years. "You're breaking him in," Calhoun told me. "He needs to see how the guidelines work in practice." After Calhoun left, Ramos leaned against the desk, lit a cigarette right there in the lobby, didn't even ask. "You're the replacement," he said. I frowned. Replacement for what? He smirked, exhaled smoke toward the glass. "For whoever didn't make it before you." Ramos didn't talk much the first night, just followed me on the lobby circuit, dragging smoke behind him. But around 2 a.m., when thunder cracked so hard the whole building shook, he muttered. "They're not rules. They're games. You get that, right?" I didn't answer. He continued anyway. "Last guy I worked with, Grant. Big white dude. Thought it was all bullshit. Skipped the stairwell stop. Said 30 seconds was a waste of time. Next night, he didn't show up. Calhoun didn't call the cops. Didn't even file paperwork. Just had me train the next one." My stomach nodded. "You mean me?" "Yeah." Ramos flicked ash onto the marble floor. "So whatever you do, man, don't think about skipping steps. He likes when you follow. He likes the show." He said, like it wasn't just a word. Like it was a name. Around 2:30, we took the stairs. Stopping at the 23rd floor landing felt worse with another person there. The mural of the bearded man was clearer now, colors sharper, lines deeper. I swear the lightning bolt in his hand pulsed faintly with light. We stood there for 30 seconds. Neither of us spoke. But when we left, I glanced back and the mural had 2 figures now. The man with the lightning. And beside him, a smaller figure kneeling. It looked a hell of a lot like Ramos. At 3:15, thunder cracked again. We both rushed outside, staring up. The sky above Times Square writhed with silver veins. Lightning shaped itself into letters across the clouds, too big to be coincidence. "Bow." I dropped immediately. Ramos stayed standing. The air sizzled. His cigarette burned down to ash in an instant, dropping from his hand. He cursed and hit his knees. The next bolt of lightning struck somewhere out near the Hudson. The sound rattled my teeth. When it passed, Ramos looked at me with wide eyes. "You hear the words too?" I nodded. He didn't smoke the rest of the night. Toward dawn, we heard them again. Footsteps in the lobby. We froze. The ozone smell hit almost instantly, this time sharp, metallic, suffocating. Together, we bowed our heads and turned. And there, in the reflection of the glass wall, was Grant. His body was charred, blackened, smoke curling off his skin. His mouth moved, but no sound came. Then the thunder cracked, and his reflection shattered into sparks. Ramos dropped to the floor, shaking. Jesus Christ, he muttered. He didn't just disappear. He got taken. I wanted to tell him no. That we'd imagined it. That it was stress, sleep deprivation, paranoia. But the smell of burnt flesh lingered in the lobby long after the reflection was gone. After Ramos left, I pulled out the old note I'd found under the desk. The one that said, "The guidelines don't keep you safe. They keep him entertained." This time, I flipped it over. There were more words on the back, written faint and smudged, like someone had pressed hard with the pen but tried to erase it after. When he laughs, don't look up. Don't ever look up. That night, I didn't sleep again. Not because of fear. But because I was starting to believe the guidelines weren't protection at all. They were choreography. And we were dancing for Zeus. Ramos didn't show up the next night. Calhoun didn't mention him. Didn't even acknowledge he existed. When I asked, all I got was that pale, empty smile. "Some people can't handle the schedule," he said. "Don't worry. You'll do fine." The way he said "you'll" felt like a curse. The lobby was louder than usual, every footstep echoed like a gunshot, every hum of the lights trembled through my teeth. The neon outside flickered between Coke ads and Broadway shows, but sometimes, just for a blink, it flashed white, searing, like lightning trapped in a loop. On my first circuit, clockwise, I saw my reflection lag again. Only this time, it smiled when I didn't. A wide, cracked grin across my own face. I kept walking, heart pounding. The 23rd floor mural was sharper again. I hated looking at it, but I couldn't not. Now the kneeling figure beside Zeus wasn't Ramos anymore. It was me. The face, the slouch of the shoulders exact. And the lightning bolt in Zeus's hand was brighter, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. 30 seconds felt like hours. I counted every one out loud just to stay sane. When I turned to leave, I thought I heard stones scraping like something shifting behind the plaster. I couldn't take it anymore. The rules were bad enough, but the mural changing every night was worse. I had to know what this building was. The next day, instead of going home, I dragged myself to the New York Public Library. Tired, jittery, still smelling faintly of ozone. The building at 1515 Broadway had been finished in the late 1970s, replacing an older theater that had burned down. But before that? The records were thin, but there were whispers in the microfilm clippings. A Greek immigrant society had owned the land in the 1890s. They'd hosted rituals there, pagan celebrations, according to a sneering editorial in the Times. One headline from 1902 read, "Lightning kills 3 at Midtown Festival, fire consumes shrine." The article said lightning struck out of a clear sky, torching the makeshift temple. The survivors claimed it wasn't an accident. They called it a visitation. The city paved over the ruins and built again. Theater, then offices, now glass and steel. But the ground never changed. I left the library shaking. That night, the thunder started early. 11:45. Way before the usual window. I counted. 1, 2, 3 lightning at 4. The guideline said, step outside, look up. I did. The sky above Times Square was torn open. Not clouds, not even storm. Just raw light, jagged and endless, like someone had peeled the heavens back to show the wiring beneath. And in that light, I saw him. Not clear, not whole, but enough. A vast silhouette, crowned with flame, hand raised, holding the bolt. When the thunder rolled, the sound knocked me flat. And in it, the voice. Mine. At 3 a.m., during the stairwell stop, my phone buzzed. No service in there usually, but it buzzed anyway. An unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. God help me, I shouldn't. A man's voice rasped through static. You read the back of the note, didn't you? I froze. My throat locked. Who is this? The last one before Ramos. Name's Grant. Or what's left of him. Don't listen to Calhoun. He doesn't serve the company. He serves him. The line cracked with static. Behind the voice, I heard thunder. Don't miss a step, the voice said again. Don't miss a step, or you'll be kneeling forever. Then the line went dead. I stumbled out into the gray morning with my ears ringing. My skin prickled like static, and my shoes left faint black marks on the sidewalk that vanished as soon as the sun touched them. I looked up just once and saw storm clouds hanging above Midtown, even though the rest of the city was clear. And in the deepest fold of those clouds, for half a second, I saw an eye. Watching. By the 5th week, I'd stopped marking days on the calendar. Time didn't work the same anymore. My world shrank to 6-hour slices of night, lobby circuits, thunder counts, stairwell pauses, footsteps, reflections. The city outside blurred, but inside the building everything sharpened. Every second stretched like elastic, every guideline carved into my chest. That's when I started noticing something about Calhoun. Every night he was already there when I arrived. Sitting at the desk. Perfect suit, tie knotted sharp, eyes pale like a washed-out photograph. But I never saw him leave. Shift ends at 6 a.m., I'd gather my things, step outside into the gray dawn. He'd still be there, hands folded on the desk, waiting. The next night, when I came back. Same posture. Same smile. Like he hadn't moved an inch. One night, I decided to test it. Around 1 a.m., during a rare quiet spell, I asked Calhoun where the break room was. He raised an eyebrow. Break room? Yeah, I said. Microwave, fridge, coffee pot something. His smile thinned. There is no break room. I pushed. There's 20 floors of office space. You telling me nobody leaves snacks lying around? His eyes darkened, almost amused. You misunderstand. There is no break room. This building doesn't need one. At 2 a.m., I caught him in the lobby, staring at the elevator doors. Not just staring. Whispering. I couldn't hear the words at first. Then a crack of thunder shook the glass walls, and his voice rose above it. In service to the Father of Skies, in service to the Keeper of Storms. I froze. He turned slowly, caught me watching. His smile snapped back into place, polite as always. Don't use the elevator, he said softly. You know the guideline. Then he walked back to the desk. Later that shift, when he stepped away, though I didn't see where to, I checked the security desk. Old wooden drawers, stacked with yellowing papers. Inside, I found files. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Each one stamped with a name, a date of hire, a date of nothing. Just a line drawn through it. I flipped until I found one, Grant P. His file was empty except for a single sentence. Taken. Another, Ramos E. No date. Just waiting. And then I found my own. My name, my hire date. And one word typed neatly under, status. Pending. Around 3:45, the sky broke open again. The voice rolled down Broadway like a living storm. But this time, instead of the single word command, it laughed. Not thunder. Laughter. Deep, booming, shaking every window, rattling my skull. And I remembered the back of the note, when he laughs, don't look up. So I dropped to my knees, face pressed to the marble floor, eyes squeezed shut. Calhoun's voice drifted over me, soft and reverent. He sees you. He sees everything. When the laughter faded, I stood, fists clenched. You don't work here, do you? I said. Calhoun tilted his head, that pale smile stretching too wide. Work? No. I serve. Serve who? I spat. He didn't blink. The one who owns the sky above this city. The one who has never left his throne. The one who takes lightning and makes it law. Zeus, I whispered. He inclined his head, like I'd answered correctly on a test. The rest of the shift, he didn't speak to me. Just watched. Every time I circled the lobby, I felt his eyes burning into my back. And when I finally stepped out into the dawn, I glanced up at the storm cloud still hanging heavy above Midtown. This time, I couldn't resist. I looked. And through the dark folds of cloud, I saw a throne. Vast, endless, carved from lightning itself. And on it, something sitting. Watching. When the thunder rolled, it wasn't laughter. It was hunger. By then, sleep barely touched me. Even when I closed my eyes, the storm followed veins of lightning stitched behind my eyelids, the sound of thunder like a voice rolling across my dreams. And always the same word, over and over, pending. It was a Tuesday, just past 1 a.m., when I heard it. A knock on the lobby's glass doors. Slow. Steady. Too calm for a drunk. At first, I thought it was some random New Yorker who'd stumbled off Times Square, but the lobby lights cast his shadow clear across the marble. Broad shoulders. Bent posture. And then he lifted his face. Jesus Christ, I whispered. It was Ramos. They weren't right. His eyes weren't eyes anymore. They flickered. Tiny flashes of light, faint but unmistakable, like storm clouds holding back a bolt. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just the faint hiss of static, like a radio between stations. The thunder outside rumbled low in response, almost pleased. My hand went to my pocket automatically, brushing against the folded note. Rule 3. If someone knocks on the lobby glass, do not answer. Even if you know them. Even if you know them. I froze. Ramos had trained me on this desk. He'd shown me the ropes, warned me without saying the word God. And now he was standing outside, hands pressed to the glass, his breath fogging the window like any normal man. But those eyes. That static. Don't, Calhoun said. I nearly jumped. He'd appeared behind me, silent as always. That's not him anymore. My throat clenched. You knew him. I know all of them, Calhoun said. They serve when they break. He broke. Outside, Ramos slammed a hand flat against the glass. The lights flickered overhead. I can't just leave him out there, I said. Calhoun smiled faintly. You can. And you must. The building is a mouth. It opens only when he wills it. The glass rattled. Ramos leaned close, forehead pressed to the pane, and this time he spoke. But the voice wasn't his. It was thunder. Open. The command rolled through the building, made every hair on my arm stand on end. Calhoun's hand shot out, gripping my wrist like iron. Don't listen. Don't obey. Not unless the guidelines permit. The storm outside crackled, lightning splitting over the Hudson. And Ramos's flickering eyes locked on mine. I backed away from the doors, heart pounding. Why me? I asked Calhoun. My voice cracked. Why keep me here if he already has people like him? Calhoun's pale smile faltered, just for a second. Because he likes to choose. And he is watching how well you listen. The implication sank into my gut like lead. I wasn't guarding the building. I was being tested. Ramos slammed the glass once more, a deafening crack that spiderwebbed the pane from top to bottom. And then, without another word, he turned and walked into the storm. The building was quiet again. Too quiet. Calhoun released my wrist and smoothed his tie. You did well. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I collapsed into the chair behind the desk, shaking. Because deep down, I understood something terrible. The rules weren't there to protect me. They were there to train me. I thought the worst was over after Ramos walked back into the night. But the real test didn't come from outside. It came from the building itself. Around 2 a.m., the lobby lights flickered once. Twice. Then stayed dim, humming faint like dying insects. The storm outside pressed against the glass walls, shadows of lightning crawling across the marble floor. And then the air shifted. It wasn't just humid, or heavy. It crackled. My arm hair stood straight, my teeth tingled like I'd bitten into tinfoil. And that's when I realized. The storm wasn't outside anymore. It was in the lobby with me. The note in my pocket felt suddenly useless. I pulled it out anyway, scanning the rules like a drowning man searching for air. Count the thunder. Don't take the stairs between 2 and 3. Never answer the glass. Avoid the elevator. None of them told me what to do when the thunder was rattling the inside of the walls. And then the thunder spoke again. Not outside. Not from the sky. From the vents above my head. Count. I started counting, voice breaking. 1, 2, 3. The sound echoed back, distorted, my own voice bouncing down the empty lobby. When I hit 5, the lightning flared across the ceiling tiles. When I hit 7, the storm growled low, approving. By 9, the glass doors behind me shook so hard I thought they'd blow inward. And when I reached 10, the lights went dead. The only illumination came from streaks of blue-white lightning running like veins through the marble itself. That's when I noticed the reflections. The guideline said, never look at your reflection after thunder. But I hadn't broken it, had I? This wasn't a mirror. This was the floor. Yet there I was, my reflection swimming in the crackling marble. Only it wasn't me. The figure in the lightning-veined surface was smiling. Wide, cruel. And when the thunder rolled again, its lips moved with the storm. Open. I spun. Calhoun. But he wasn't at the desk. Not in the lobby at all. The storm answered instead. Lightning bolted down a column and carved a his shape. A glowing imitation of him, hollow-eyed, its suit made of static. You listen well, it said in his voice. That pleases him. I backed away, heart hammering. What does he want? The static Calhoun smiled. To be seen. The storm inside reached a peak. A single bolt split across the ceiling, shaking dust from the vents, making the marble floor buckle like wood under strain. And then, through the lightning, I saw it again. That throne. Vast. Endless. Suspended above Manhattan. And the shape upon it glorious, terrible, electric leaned forward. My ears filled with one command, a voice that wasn't just thunder, but every storm that had ever split the sky. Look up. Every fiber of me screamed to obey. My neck twitched, wanting to tilt back, wanting to give in. But the back of the note burned in my memory. When he laughs, don't look up. This wasn't laughter. But maybe the rules still held. I clenched my jaw, shut my eyes, and dropped to my knees again. The storm howled around me, furious, lightning splintering like claws across the walls. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, the lights were back. The storm was outside again. And Calhoun was at the desk, hands folded, smiling. Like nothing had happened. He didn't say a word. And I didn't ask. Because now I knew the truth. The rules weren't just guidelines. They weren't even protections. They were negotiations. And Zeus, the father of skies, the lord of thunder, was rewriting them. One bolt at a time. The night after the storm came inside, I couldn't sit still at the desk. Every hum of the air vents made me flinch. Every flash outside the glass felt like it would bleed through the walls again. And Calhoun's smile was worse than thunder. So I did what any security guard shouldn't do. I started wandering deeper into the building. On the main lobby's far wall, tucked behind the fire panel, there's a plain steel door. No signage. No handle, just a keypad. I'd never seen Calhoun use it, but that night, it was cracked open just an inch. The stairwell behind it breathed cool, damp air that smelled like wet stone. Not concrete. Stone. I pushed it wider and started down. It wasn't an office basement. No parking garage, no storage cages. This stairwell was carved. Not built, not poured, carved, like someone had chipped it out of the earth with chisels. 20 steps down, the buzzing of the fluorescent lobby faded. What replaced it was a low, constant rumble, almost like thunder under the ground. At the bottom was a chamber. Circular, wide, domed overhead. Not modern. Not American. Stone blocks blackened by centuries of smoke, carved with spirals and eagles, bolts and thrones. Greek, though I didn't know enough history to name the style. It felt older than New York, older than the continent. And in the center was a stone chair. A throne, smaller than the one in the clouds but carved in the same jagged lines. Lightning scars ran through it, cracks glowing faint blue. On a pedestal beside the throne lay a leather-bound book, its cover cracked, its edges brittle. I flipped it open. Inside were names. Pages and pages of names, each one followed by a single word, taken, broken, or pending. At the very end me name. Still pending. But above mine was Ramos. And next to his, taken. The ground shook under my feet. The cracks in the throne glowed brighter. And a voice rose not from the sky this time, but from below. This city is built on stolen stone. The chamber thundered, dust falling from the dome. The foundations were mine before your empire. Before your gods. The lightning seared through the cracks, nearly blinding. I stumbled back, heart hammering. And then faintly, in the storm's rhythm I heard Ramos's voice, broken and hollow, echoing from the cracks. Don't sit. I bolted. Up the carved stairs, through the door, slamming it behind me. Back in the lobby, Calhoun was waiting. He smoothed his tie, gave me that thin smile, and said, "You weren't supposed to find that yet." The rest of the shift was silent. Calhoun didn't explain. And I didn't press. But I couldn't shake what I'd heard. This building wasn't just another tower on Times Square. It was built on something ancient. Something Zeus had already claimed. And my job wasn't to guard it. It was to keep it alive. The night after I found the throne in the basement, I told myself I'd stay planted at the desk. No wandering. No testing doors. Just keep the guidelines. But rules don't matter when the storm decides otherwise. It started around 2:15. The exact window when the stairwells are forbidden. A sound like boots on stone. Not concrete. Not tile. Stone. Heavy, echoing steps that didn't belong to this building. And then a voice. Low, crackling, broken by static. My shift ain't over. I saw him on camera first. Monitor 4, showing the east stairwell. Ramos. Head bent. Shoulders broad. His walk steady but off. Like his body was moving half a second behind the thunder. His eyes flickered white-blue every few steps, like lightning trapped in his skull. I tried the radio. Static. Tried the landline. Dead. The storm was closing the exits, funneling me to one option: face him. I caught him on the 12th floor landing. The lights there buzzed and popped, half dead. His boots dragged across the tile, each scrape sparking faint arcs that crawled toward the walls. "Ramos," I whispered. His head snapped up. His smile was too wide, cracked at the corners. "You're pending," he said. The voice was his and not his, two tones layered, man and thunder braided together. The guidelines said nothing about this. No rule for when the dead walked back inside. But I remembered the stairwell line, never between 2 and 3. And I realized I was breaking it just by standing here. He reached out a hand, veins glowing like lit wires. "Come on," he said. "Shift's easier once you're taken. No rules. No fear. Just the storm. Just him." His hand shook. Not with weakness, but with barely contained voltage. Behind his smile, his eyes begged. Like the man inside was still there, screaming through the static. The walls shook. A crack of lightning split the stairwell window, glass shattering inward. "Look up," the storm commanded again. But I kept my eyes locked on Ramos. If I looked skyward, I knew I'd be lost. So I spoke. My voice barely steady. "What happens if I don't?" Ramos's smile fell. For 1 second, the storm in him flickered low. And in that flash, his real voice came through, desperate, shredded. "Then he breaks you. Bit by bit." The lightning flared again, burning out the stairwell lights, plunging us into blue-white flashes and blackness. And when they came back, Ramos was gone. I staggered back to the lobby, skin prickling like I'd stood too close to a live transformer. Calhoun was waiting at the desk, hands folded. "You spoke to him," he said, not a question. I nodded. "Good," he replied. "He's the example. You're the candidate." And the storm outside cracked once, like applause. I used to trust the guidelines like a Bible. They were the only thing between me and being broken into thunder. But last night, they changed. Not rewritten by hand, not replaced by Calhoun. The rules themselves bent. When I arrived for my shift, the folded note was waiting on the desk. Same yellow paper. Same typewritten lines. But one was different. Where it used to say, "Rule 1, always count the thunder." It now read, "Rule 1, never count the thunder." I stared at it, bile rising in my throat. If I counted, I broke the new version. If I didn't, I broke the old version. Both felt like traps. And at 1:30, the storm made sure of it. A bolt lit up the skyline, thunder shaking the glass walls. The demand followed, same as always. "Count." I froze. My lips parted. Nothing came out. The air grew heavy, the marble floor humming under my boots. And then another crack. "Obey." Calhoun leaned against the desk, pale eyes gleaming. "Well," he asked softly. "Which version will you follow?" "You changed it," I hissed. He shook his head. "I don't change the rules. I only deliver them." He changes. He tests. He measures. Measure what? Calhoun's smile widened. Flexibility. At 2:05, the thunder shifted again. The stairwell guideline had always been clear. Never between 2 and 3. But when I checked the note again, it now said, "Always take the stairs between 2 and 3. I felt the blood drain from my face. What happens if both can't be true? I whispered. Calhoun smoothed his tie, voice low. Then you improvise. The storm pushed me toward the stairwell. Lights dimmed, hallway doors rattled, glass windows flexing like lungs. I stood at the stairwell door, hand on the metal handle. It was hot. Too hot. Like it had been struck already. Behind me, the thunder rolled. Choose. I cracked the door, just enough to look inside. The stairwell glowed faint blue. Bolts crawled down the steps like snakes, hissing. And in the reflection of the window at the landing, I saw myself. Not smiling. Not warped. Just waiting. So I did the only thing I could. I stepped one foot inside. And left the other planted in the hull. Half obedience. Half defiance. The thunder above rumbled low, almost amused. When I looked back at the note in my pocket, the rules were as they'd always been. No contradictions. No changes. Calhoun met my eyes, pale and knowing. He likes you, he said. But my gut told me the truth. This wasn't about like or dislike. This was about breaking me down until I bent without thinking. And I was starting to bend. The lobby was quiet that night. Too quiet. No thunder. No flicker in the lights. Just the kind of stillness that feels staged, like a trap waiting to snap shut. And at 2 o'clock exactly, the glass doors opened on their own. Ramos walked in. He wasn't burned or broken anymore. His security uniform was pressed, spotless, his badge gleaming under the fluorescence. But his boots sparked faint arcs with every step. His skin had the pale sheen of marble struck by lightning. And his eyes blue white, steady, constant no longer flickered. This was no glitch. This was permanence. He walked straight to the desk, sat where he used to sit, and folded his hands. Shift change, he said. Voice calm. Normal. Except the echo. The double layer of thunder under every syllable. You can go home now. My mouth went dry. The guidelines in my pocket burned like a live wire. There was no rule for this. No line about what to do when Ramos tried to take his post back. Calhoun stood in the corner, watching, expression unreadable. This isn't real, I whispered. Ramos's smile was slow, patient. Real enough. You've been training. Pending. But he doesn't need pendings anymore. He needs guards who don't hesitate. He leaned forward, lightning crawling down his jawline. So. Do you sit? Or do I? The storm outside grumbled faintly, restless. The marble under my boots hummed. If I gave him the desk, maybe the night would pass quietly. Maybe I'd survive another shift. But if I resisted? What then? I forced myself to look away from him. At the glass behind us. In the reflection, I saw Ramos too. But not the version sitting in the chair. The reflected Ramos was screaming, mouth wide, fists slamming against invisible walls. His eyes weren't blue-white. They were brown. Human. I turned back. You're not him, I said. His smile flickered just once. Then the thunder boomed so loud the glass rattled in its frames. The lightning Ramos rose, sparks bleeding from his sleeves, hands curling into fists. Wrong answer. The storm entered with him this time. Bolts arced across the lobby floor, lights blew out one by one. Calhoun didn't move. Didn't interfere. Just watched, pale eyes glowing faint in the dark. And Ramos what war Ramos stepped forward, every movement sharp, electric. Pending ends tonight, the thunder said through his mouth. The first bolt hit the reception desk. Slammed down like the wrath of the sky. The wood split open, monitors burst in sparks, the smell of burning plastic and ozone filling my throat until I gagged. Ramos the thing wearing Ramos wasn't walking anymore. He moved like electricity itself, flashing forward, reappearing a step closer, leaving afterimages in the dark. Every instinct screamed, run. But the guidelines didn't say a damn thing about running. I glanced toward Calhoun, desperate for even a twitch, some hint in order. Nothing. He stood perfectly still in the corner, hands clasped in front of him like he was at prayer. Face blank, eyes unblinking. This was my test. Mine alone. The words Ramos spoke. You follow rules, he said, voice doubled again with thunder. Good dog. He tilted his head, electricity snapping across his teeth when he smiled. But what happens when the rules run out? Another bolt struck the floor 2 feet from me. The tiles exploded into shards. Heat licked my face. I remembered the reflection in the glass, how the real Ramos was screaming silently behind it. The guidelines hadn't saved him. The rules had been twisted, bent to serve someone else's system. And Yeath was still there. Still fighting, pounding at the glass. If he hadn't been erased completely, maybe I didn't have to be either. I shoved my chair back, heart pounding. Every nerve in my body told me I was insane, but I stepped into the center of the lobby. The marble floor hummed under my boots. Lightning raced along the ceiling, crawling like veins. I raised my voice, rough, shaking. I won't give you the desk. The storm's response. Silence. Then the loudest thunderclap I've ever heard cracked inside the building itself. The chandeliers above burst like glass bombs, raining shards down. The entire lobby filled with blue-white light so bright I couldn't see. And in that blinding light, for just a second, I saw him. Not Ramos. Not a man. A figure vast as the sky itself, crowned, holding a staff of living fire. Eyes that weren't eyes, just twin suns burning through storm clouds. Zeus. The next thing I knew, I was on the lobby floor. Smoke in my lungs. My ears ringing like they'd burst. The desk was gone, splintered into blackened fragments. The glass doors cracked from top to bottom. And Ramos? Vanished. Only the faint smell of ozone and the scorch mark of boots leading into the lightning remained. Calhoun finally spoke. You lasted longer than most. Then he walked away. I thought it would end there. Thought I'd passed some kind of trial, that Ramos was the offering Zeus wanted, and the rest of us could crawl back into routine. But storms don't stay in boxes. They spread. The first clue came 3 nights later. I was at my post, half numb, eyes on the lobby doors like always, when the glass flickered. Like lightning was flashing outside. Except the sky beyond Times Square was clear. No clouds, no weather at all. The thunder still came. Deep, rolling, unnatural, echoing down between the skyscrapers like a drumline from hell. Radios crackled on their own. Every floor reported it. Phantom interference, one of the janitors said. The PA system in the stairwell kept spitting out half words in a voice that wasn't human. And then the elevators. They started opening by themselves. Each time, the air inside was heavy, smelling of rain-soaked stone, and faint arcs of static crawled up the metal walls. At 3:17 a.m., I stepped out on patrol near the revolving doors. That's when I saw it. The billboards across the street all at once blanked. Every neon sign in Times Square went black. Then, slowly, each screen lit back up. Not with ads. With eyes. Golden, burning eyes, dozens of them, staring down on me from every screen. And above, perched on the shoulders of the Nasdaq sign, I swear I saw the outline of something sitting cross-legged, lightning dripping from its fingertips like candle wax. The guidelines didn't cover this. The lobby I could control. The desk I could guard. But what do you do when the whole city is rewritten as an altar? I called Calhoun. No answer. I called dispatch. The line shrieked with static. I even tried dialing my brother. And for 3 long rings, someone picked up. But it wasn't him. Just heavy, wet breathing. And in the background, the crash of thunder. When I turned back toward the lobby, the doors weren't reflecting me anymore. They were showing a storm. A full tempest rolling across endless black sea. And Ramos was in it. His face pressed against the other side, still screaming, his eyes glowing like live wires. His hands slammed the glass. Not weak, not fading. Strong. Urgent. Like he was trying to warn me. Then a voice came, not from the doors, not from the sky, but from inside my head. The city is mine. You will kneel, or you will drown. I staggered back, heart hammering, every hair on my arm standing on end. And then I remembered something the predecessor's journal had scratched into the maintenance closet wall. If he leaves the building, the rules change. Do not call his name. Do not beg. Do not run. So I did the only thing left. I walked back to the desk. Sat down. And whispered, over and over, like a prayer. I am not yours. I am not yours. I am not yours. It wasn't supposed to spill outside. That's what Calhoun had promised when I first signed. The guidelines kept everything contained within the glass doors. You kept the desk, you kept the order, and the rest of New York rolled on in its noisy, sleepless rhythm. But on the 4th night after Ramos vanished, Times Square bled into the storm. The man in the crosswalk. He was just a delivery guy. Yellow slicker, helmet still strapped on, balancing 2 pizzas on his handlebars. I watched him stop at the light across 7th Avenue, head turned up toward the billboards. Everyone was staring that night. The screens were flickering again, blinking like lightning-struck eyes. The guy laughed. Shook his head. Said something to a stranger beside him like, Times Square's glitching again. The light went green. He pedaled forward. And that's when it happened. A bolt. Not from the sky, no storm clouds above. It came straight out of the billboard itself. White blue, searing, snapping down like a whip. The man convulsed once, body jerking stiff, pizzas exploding into the air. By the time he hit the pavement, he was smoking. Dead. The crosswalk was silent. Nobody screamed. Nobody ran. They just stared. Like some part of them already knew better. I pressed my forehead against the lobby glass, trembling. The reflection wasn't mine again. It was Ramos, drenched, hair plastered to his head, screaming soundlessly. Behind him, a shape too large to be contained. Crown of lightning. Eyes like twin suns. And his mouth opened. Not Ramos. Him. The sound didn't come through the glass. It came through me. Obedience is survival. Defiance is ash. By morning, New York One was calling it a freak electrical fire. Somebody even suggested faulty wiring in the streetlights. But I'd been there. I'd seen it. And when the camera panned across the soaked pavement, the scorch mark was unmistakable. A perfect lightning bolt burned into asphalt, running jagged down the white paint of the crosswalk. That same night, while I was doing rounds, I found it. Scratched into the underside of the desk. Not in pen, not in marker. Carved deep with something sharp, like someone had done it in panic. The letters were uneven, desperate. If the sky opens inside the city, new rules apply. And below it, half erased, almost gouged out. Never look up when the thunder rolls between the towers. He will think you are answering. I sat there until dawn, heart in my throat, fighting the urge to glance at the windows every time the sky lit white. Because the storm wasn't just above the building anymore. It was threading itself through Manhattan, brick by brick, screen by screen, turning the whole city into his altar. That night, the storm didn't stay above the building. It threaded itself through the canyons of Manhattan, slipping between towers like veins of fire. The guidelines had been useless ever since Ramos vanished. All I had left was the scratched warning under the desk. Never look up when the thunder rolls between the towers. First roll. It came at 2:43 a.m. A low rumble, not overhead between. It shivered the glass like a subway train passing inches beneath my feet. Every instinct screamed at me to crane my neck, to look for clouds, for lightning, for the source. Instead, I clenched my jaw, forced my eyes down. Counted tile seams on the marble floor. 1, 2, 3, 4. The sound lasted 13 seconds. And when it passed, the lobby lights flickered back to steady. I'd survived the first test. The girl on the sidewalk. 5 minutes later, I caught her in the corner of my eye. A girl, maybe college age, standing alone on the sidewalk outside the lobby doors. No coat, no umbrella. Just a backpack and her phone raised like she was recording. She was looking up. Her mouth hung open in awe, the reflection of neon lightning burning across her glasses. I wanted to bang on the glass, scream for her to stop, to look down. But the thunder rolled again. She didn't blink. Didn't move. When it ended, she was gone. No scream. No body. Just the faint scent of ozone drifting through the revolving doors. The landline rang. First time since this all began. I picked it up, hands shaking. Calhoun's voice was on the other end, thin, ragged. "You're still alive." I tried to demand answers, to ask what the hell was happening to the city, but he cut me off. "Don't look up," he whispered. "Don't ever look up. He wants worshippers. Every lifted face is a prayer to him. Every prayer is a chain." Static swallowed his voice. The line went dead. I checked the desk again, ran my fingers under the carved warning. That's when I felt it. Another gouge, deeper, hidden beneath the first. I got down on my knees, pulled out my phone light, and there it was. If thunder strikes twice in one night, do not speak. Do not breathe his name. Silence is survival. The second roll. It came at 4:11. This time louder, hungrier. The lights blew out across the lobby. In the dark, every billboard outside turned into an eye. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all staring straight into me. I bit my tongue. Held my breath. And I swear to God, I heard him moving above the building. A vast body scraping against glass and steel. Breathing. Waiting. 13 seconds. 14. 15. Then, silence. The eyes blinked out. The lobby lights returned. And I was still alive. By the sixth night, Times Square wasn't a crowd anymore. It was an altar. The tourists still came, clutching shopping bags and selfie sticks, but they weren't people now. They were worshippers. Unwitting, unwilling, but is all the same. At 1:07 a.m., I noticed it first. A whole block of pedestrians froze at once. Dozens of bodies, mid-step, mid-sentence, caught like mannequins under the billboards. Every screen above them pulsed with white light, stuttering like lightning behind glass. And then came the thunder. Not rolling this time. Single. Crushing. When it hit, the people all tilted their heads up in unison. I pressed against the lobby glass, begging silently, "Don't look. Please don't look." But they did. Every last one of them. It didn't happen with screams. Or fire. Or falling bodies. They just blinked out. Like someone cut them from the frame of reality. 1 second they were there, mouths open toward the light, and the next. Empty crosswalk. Shopping bags collapsed in puddles. Phones clattered on asphalt. But the people themselves were gone. The storm had swallowed them whole. The glass trembled under my palms. Ramos was there again, on the other side. This time, he wasn't screaming. He was mouthing words, slow, deliberate. Over and over. Don't look. Don't speak. Don't follow. Behind him, the sea churned black, lightning boiling across the horizon. And high above it all, the crowned figure stood tall, his arms raised, feeding on the vanished crowd like smoke drawn into lungs. At 3 a.m., the PA crackled overhead. Not static this time. A voice. Deep, layered with thunder. Only you resist. Only you defy. Every light in the lobby dimmed until I could barely see my hands. The revolving doors turned on their own, glass groaning. Wind roared in, hot and damp, carrying the smell of salt water. Not Hudson River salt. Ancient sea. I slammed the doors shut, locked them with shaking hands. And in the silence that followed, the storm whispered inside my skull. You will kneel, or you will vanish like the rest. I sat back at the desk, head in my hands, trying to breathe. The rules kept me alive so far. But they were breaking, bending, twisting as he grew stronger. If the city kept feeding him like this, if people kept looking up, there'd be nobody left but me. And maybe that was the point. Until that night, I thought I'd been invisible. Not safe, never safe, but at least beneath his notice just another speck among the millions in Manhattan. I was wrong. At 2:19 a.m., every light in Times Square went out at once. Not dimmed. Not flickered. Dead. Darkness swallowed everything. The streets, the billboards, even the sky. The only light left was inside the lobby, buzzing fluorescent and too bright, like I'd been left standing on a stage. The storm wanted me visible. The thunder's shape. It started low. Not sound, not exactly, more like pressure in my bones, my teeth rattling in my skull. The thunder wasn't rolling between towers this time. It was circling. I felt it sweep left, then right, like some massive predator pacing just out of sight. And then, the glass trembled, and he stepped forward. Not Ramos. Not a reflection. Him. Crowned in storm, face carved from sky, lightning crawling across his beard like serpents. A presence so massive the lobby felt like it could barely hold the outline of his body. His voice came not from outside, not even from inside my head. It came from everywhere at once. Daniel. I froze. No one had said my name in this building since the night I started. I hadn't even told Calhoun. Daniel, the voice repeated, softer, rumbling like a mountain shifting. You resist. Why? The guidelines never said anything about this. No, what to do if the God speaks. No rule for when he knows who you are. I swallowed, throat raw. Every instinct screamed to drop to my knees, to beg, to survive. But Ramos's face flashed in my mind. Mouth pressed against the glass. Silent plea, don't look. Don't speak. Don't follow. So I didn't answer. Didn't move. I sat back down at the desk. Hands shaking on the armrests. And I waited. Silence stretched. Then the storm laughed. Not human laughter, something deeper, jagged, like tectonic plates grinding together. You defy me. That is worship. A bolt of lightning cracked inside the lobby itself, inches from my chair. The floor split open in a jagged scar, smoke pouring upward. And through the smoke, his words burned hotter than fire. You are mine. When I woke, the lobby was silent again. The glass was intact. The floor unbroken. But my name, my real name, was carved into the marble by the desk. Deep. Perfect. As if struck there by lightning itself. The night after he spoke my name, I didn't expect to sleep. But somehow, exhaustion pinned me in the chair, and the city dragged me under. That's when the vision began. I wasn't in the lobby anymore. Not really. The glass, the desk, the marble floor, they melted away like heat haze. In their place, stone pillars rose, stretching higher than skyscrapers, carved from storm cloud and lightning. I stood barefoot on wet marble, the air thick with ozone, the taste of salt sharp on my tongue. And yet, when I turned my head, I still saw Times Square bleeding through the cracks. Yellow cabs fossilized in marble. Billboards nailed to pillars. Tourists frozen mid-scream, cast in bronze, mouths open in eternal awe. Olympus, but warped. A god's throne built from a city he had claimed. At the center was Zeus. Enormous. Crowned in fire, robes stitched from cloud, every movement making the air buckle with static. And scattered at his feet. Figures. Not statues. People. Some I recognized from the vanishings. The pizza delivery guy, the girl with glasses, tourists from nights past. All on their knees, eyes vacant, lightning crawling like vines across their skin. Worshippers, reshaped. His words. Do you see, Daniel? His voice split the air. The marble beneath me cracked with every syllable. This city kneels, as all cities have kneeled. As all men have kneeled. You resist, but resistance feeds me. Your defiance is a prayer. One of the kneeling figures lifted her head. The girl from the sidewalk, the one who vanished without a sound. Her lips moved. Not her own words. His words, flowing through her like a puppet. Join us. Bow, and the storm will pass over you. Stand, and be ash. Her eyes sparked white as she spoke, tears of rain streaking down her face. Every muscle in my body screamed to kneel. The air itself demanded it, pressing on my spine like a hand forcing me down. But I clenched my jaw, locked my knees, and whispered into the storm. I am not yours. The marble shook. Lightning tore the sky open. The worshippers wailed in unison. And Zeus rose from his throne. The vision snapped. I was back in the lobby, slumped against the desk, sweat soaking my uniform. But the floor was cracked. Hairline fractures running across the marble in the same pattern as the lightning bolts I'd seen on Olympus. And faintly, from outside, thunder rolled. Not overhead. Between the towers. I didn't even get to stand before it began. The cracks in the marble weren't just cracks. They were openings. It started as a hum in my feet, like standing on a live wire. Then the floor split wider thin, jagged lines glowing with the same white-blue light I'd seen in his throne room. Wind tore up through the gaps, hot and salted, smelling of Black Sea. And with the wind came fingers. Not human. Not even flesh. They were shapes of storm, outlines of hands sculpted from lightning, reaching up from the cracks, clawing for my legs. I staggered back, kicking at the first one. My boot passed straight through, but the heat seared my skin. Everywhere I stepped, more cracks followed, marble splitting like old ice. The desk shook, phones rattling, and one of the monitors blinked to static. Through the static came his voice. Enough watching. You will kneel where I sit. The lightning hands grabbed higher. One brushed my ankle. And in that instant, the lobby fell away. I wasn't fully gone, not yet. One half of me still clung to the desk, white-knuckled. The other half dangled over black waters, a storm raging across endless horizon. I could see his throne waiting, vast and terrible, a seat carved into the bones of thunderclouds. And kneeling before it, Ramos. His body hunched, bound in chains of lightning. But his head jerked toward me, and for the first time, his mouth moved with his own voice. Fight it. The storm yanked hard. My ribs felt like they were splitting, torn between two worlds. The lobby lights above flickered, threatening to blow. Then, a sound. Not thunder. Not his voice. A whisper. Faint, almost mist, rising from inside the cracked marble. He cannot hold what resists in silence. I bit down on every instinct to scream. To curse, to pray, to shout Ramos's name. Instead, I went quiet. Not a word. Not a sound. Not even breath. And in that silence, the lightning hands faltered. They twitched, spasmed, and finally shattered into sparks, retreating back into the cracks. The storm roared in fury. Silence is not defiance. It is cowardice. But when I blinked, I was back in the lobby. Whole. The marble closed again, sealing the fractures. My ankle was scorched raw, skin blistered where the storm had touched me. But I was alive. And carved into the desk, fresh and glowing, were 3 new words. Not forever, Daniel. The storm didn't leave. It just stepped outside. I thought silence saved me. But the moment the marble closed, the glass walls of the lobby lit white, brighter than day. Every billboard outside Times Square flickered in sync, then died. Screens, neon signs, even the rolling news ticker. Dead. And then came the sound. Not thunder. Not the rain. The sound of stone splitting. The streets outside were cracking open, fissures running like lightning bolts through the asphalt. I watched cab tires sink into sudden holes, people stumbling as if the ground had lost faith in them. And overhead, Zeus walked. Not fully visible. Not a man, not yet. But his outline shifted in the storm clouds, a silhouette miles wide, shoulders draped in lightning, steps making the buildings tremble. Inside the tower, alarms screamed. Red strobes cut the marble into jagged flashes. Elevators froze mid-floor, and the fire doors slammed shut, locking me in. The phones lit up again, all at once. Not ringing this time. Every line was already connected. Voices filled the air, hundreds of them, thousands, overlapping. Don't speak. Silence holds. He listens through the wires. Daniel, don't. And then a louder voice cut them all off. Him. All that stands beneath my sky is mine. Lightning speared down, striking the roof. The whole building lurched, metal shrieking deep in its bones. The instinct was to scream. To yell for help. To say anything. But I remembered the whisper in the marble. So I kept my mouth shut. Even when smoke poured from the vents. Even when the phones shook themselves off the hooks. Even when a face began pressing against the glass from outside. A human face, enormous, stretched across the entire pane, lips moving soundlessly. But I wasn't perfect. When the fire alarm burst overhead, shrill enough to pierce bone, I cursed under my breath. Just one word. A slip. And the storm heard. Lightning cracked through the glass, spearing the floor inches from my feet. The carpet caught fire instantly, smoke curling upward in shapes that weren't smoke at all. Wings, eyes, mouths. And above, his silhouette leaned closer. Closer. The whole city under his storm. When it ended. When I stumbled back to the desk, half choking, ankle bleeding from the burn. I saw he'd left another message, carved deeper this time, gouged into the marble like lightning strike scars. The silence is mine too. I thought I was the only one trapped in the tower. But when I looked through the smoking glass, I saw them. Crowds. Thousands of people, kneeling in the flooded streets. Hands pressed flat against the pavement as if it were an altar. No one screamed. No one ran. They knelt as if commanded. And the storm answered them. Bolts of lightning struck the asphalt not to kill, but to etch. Symbols burned into the street spirals, circles, marks I recognized from the marble. Zeus was riding across Manhattan. Inside, the phones wouldn't stop. Every line flickered, light strobing like desperate eyes. I picked one up. Didn't speak. Just listened. Static roared. But underneath it, a chant. Dozens of voices saying the same word over and over. Not English. Older. Heavier. Hecatomb. I didn't know it then. But later, I'd learn. A mass sacrifice. The kind Zeus demanded when people wanted his favor. The storm was building one. In the middle of that chant, buried under static, something else slipped through. Not thunder. Not the mob. A voice. Low. Calm. Familiar. Daniel. Don't give him everything. I nearly dropped the receiver. Because I knew that voice. It was Rourke. The night manager who gave me the rules my first shift. Who'd vanished without explanation weeks ago. Silence holds, but only if it's yours, he whispered. Don't let him own it. That's the trick. The silence has to belong to you. And then the line cut. Almost on cue, the fire door slammed open at the far end of the lobby. A man stumbled in, clothes soaked, eyes wide, face burnt raw from lightning. He dropped to his knees in the marble and started praying. Loud. Desperate. The storm answered immediately, lightning shattering through the ceiling, striking him where he knelt. He went still. Smoke rising. Skin blistered black. The mark appeared beside his body. Freshly burned into the marble. Kneel or burn. My throat burned from holding back words. Every instinct screamed at me to say something, anything, just to break the pressure in my chest. But Rourke's voice stayed in my skull. Not just silence. My silence. A choice, not obedience. So I stood in the lobby while the city outside knelt. And I said nothing. Not for him. For me. By midnight, the storm had swallowed everything. Not just the lights, not just the sky. The sound. Even with the glass rattling, even with thunder splitting the skyscrapers, it all came through muted. Like Zeus had his hand pressed over Manhattan's mouth. Except for the praying. I could hear it even through sealed glass and steel. Low, unified. Tens of thousands of people kneeling in sync, voices joined in one long droning word. Hecatomb. 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 The whole city had become his congregation. I couldn't stand it. I grabbed a handset again, clutching it like a lifeline. The static almost drowned me. But if I pressed the receiver hard enough to my ear, if I held my breath until my head swam, I could hear something beneath the chant. Daniel. I froze. It was Rourke again. Listen to me. The rules they gave you aren't the whole list. They never are. His voice cracked, like he was half drowning in the static. He's drawing the city into a collective offering. That's what the kneeling is. He won't stop at Times Square. He'll burn this whole country into a votive candle. Then what do I do? I whispered, against my better judgment. The storm outside jolted, lightning stuttering against the glass. You don't kneel. You don't pray. But silence isn't enough anymore. Then what? There was a pause. And then, flat and final. You've got to steal his thunder. The line went dead. Not quiet dead. All the phones slammed their receivers down at once, like invisible hands had dropped them. The sound echoed through the lobby. And above me, the ceiling cracked open. Rain poured inside, pooling on the marble, hissing as it touched the burned mark. Kneel or burn. The word blurred in the water, fading like wet ink. And another mark burned through underneath it, fresh, sparking. Choose. I understood, finally, what he wanted. The storm wasn't just weather. It was judgment. Zeus didn't need worshippers. He needed participants. Kneelers, burners, or worse players in his rules. And I was next. The marble floor was still steaming when the next crack split the ceiling. A spear of lightning punched straight through the chandelier, showering the lobby in glass. It didn't hit me. It landed beside me. Close enough to scorch my shirt, close enough to rattle every bone in my chest. But not close enough to end me. It was an invitation. Or a warning. Maybe both. The storm spoke without words. It vibrated through the metal beams, hummed through the sprinkler pipes, buzzed in the broken phone lines. A sentence etched itself into my skull. Stand or kneel. Claim or burn. The chant outside grew louder. The word hecatomb rolled like a drumbeat. Every kneeling throat gave him power. Every bent spine bent the city further. And I was the lone figure still upright in the tower, refusing. A second bolt split the floor, carving a glowing scar that snaked toward my boots. The air was so thick I could taste metal on my tongue. The lobby lights sputtered. One flickered back on. Only one. It spotlighted the front desk. The phone sat there, receiver cracked, cord smoking. And yet ringing. One ring. 2. 3. I shouldn't have answered. But the thunder was counting, and I couldn't let it reach 7. I snatched the receiver. Didn't speak. Didn't breathe. The voice on the other end wasn't Rourke's. It wasn't anyone's. It was thunder shaped into language. Claim the lightning or be its ash. And then. The receiver shocked my hand so hard I dropped it. The phone burst into flame. The final bolt came down, straight at me. I braced for bone-splitting death. But it stopped. Suspended, inches above my head, the bolt held in place like a blade waiting for my hand. It burned blue, alive, writhing like a snake trying to leap. And I understood what he meant. Steal his thunder. He was daring me to touch it. I didn't want to. Every nerve screamed to run. But where? The city was kneeling. The tower was his altar. And he was watching. So I reached up. Fingers shaking. Sweat stinging my cuts. And when I touched the lightning, it didn't kill me. It crawled into my veins. Screamed through my chest. Lit every shadow in my skull. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt him flinch. I thought the bolt would pass through me, fry me into smoke. But it didn't. It stayed. The electricity crawled under my skin like molten wire. Every heartbeat cracked with static. Every blink lit sparks across my vision. The veins in my arms glowed faint blue. My breath tasted like ozone. And through it all, one awful realization settled in. The lightning wasn't borrowed. It was lodged in me. The storm reeled. The silhouette in the clouds leaned closer, eyes flashing like skyscraper windows lit by fire. For the first time, I heard him not as thunder, not as carved marble, not as vibration, but as a voice. Thief. It shook the glass, rippled the puddles, knocked me to my knees. But I didn't kneel for him. Not this time. The phones all rang again at once. Not in staggered bursts, but in perfect unison, like a single monstrous bell. And from every speaker, every receiver, every intercom, I heard screaming. Not human. Not even earthly. The sound of mountains splitting. The sound of rivers boiled dry. The sound of gods being wounded. He was trying to pour that sound back into me, to drown out the stolen thunder in my chest. The skyscraper leaned under the storm's fury. Metal screamed as beams warped. Elevator cables snapped and fell like guillotines in the shaft. The marble cracked beneath me. And carved into those new cracks, glowing white-hot. Return what is mine. I staggered to the window. The city outside still knelt, unmoving. But now, when lightning struck the asphalt, I saw the marks differently. The spirals, the circles, the sigils. They weren't just offerings. They were locks. Zeus was binding Manhattan into a cage. And in the glow of my reflection, I saw that I carried his mark too. Burned into my palm, still sparking. High voltage. The lightning inside me pulsed, alive, hungry. And I knew I had only seconds before he tore it back out of me, ripping heart and soul with it. But in that split second, before his judgment fell, one thought seared itself clear. If I could hold it, if I could learn to use it, then I wouldn't just survive him. I could fight him. The lightning in me wasn't quiet. It pulsed like a second heart, hammering against my ribs. Every beat sent sparks crawling across my skin. The marble floor hissed where they landed. And Zeus felt it. I knew he did. Because the storm lurched. Not random, now aimed. A bolt slammed through the tower's glass wall, not beside me this time eat me. It should have shredded me. Instead, it bent. The lightning curved around me, sparking against the floor, as if the charge inside me repelled it. For a second, I thought maybe I had power now. Maybe I could stand against him. And then the pain hit. It wasn't just outside strikes anymore. He was pulling at the electricity already inside me. Tugging it back toward the sky. Every nerve in my body lit up, every muscle locking in seizure. I could feel him digging, clawing through marrow and blood, trying to rip his thunder out by force. The mark in my palm blazed white. Smoke curled off my skin. I screamed, but no sound came. The storm had stolen my voice. The lobby collapsed in sections. Marble slabs fell like toppled tombstones, the air thick with dust and ozone. One of the giant screens outside sheared free and smashed into the street below. The kneeling crowd didn't move. They just kept chanting. Hecatomb. 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 They weren't people anymore. They were his choir. I dropped to the ground, vision fracturing with static. The lightning inside me tore in two directions. One half straining up, back to the storm. The other clinging to me, refusing to leave. And I realized. If I didn't choose, I'd be split apart. Soul burned to ash between earth and sky. For the first time since this began, I forced sound into the silence. A single word, ripped raw from my throat. No. The storm shuddered. The pull slackened, just for a second. And in that second, the lightning didn't tear free. It stayed. Mine. My no hung in the air like smoke. For a moment, I thought I'd broken something. The pull of the lightning stopped. The static eased. But it wasn't mercy. It was recoil. The kind that comes before a harder strike. The storm didn't throw lightning this time. It shifted. The clouds tore open into a spiral, a black funnel yawning above Manhattan. Not wind yet. A hollow throat, waiting to inhale. The skyscrapers groaned as if they knew what was coming. And then it came. Rain didn't fall. It poured sideways. A wall of water slammed against the glass tower, hammering so hard it bowed the steel beams inward. Car alarms screamed underwater. Streetlights flickered and went black as they disappeared beneath the tide. From 30 floors up, I watched Times Square drown. Billboards fizzled. Subway grates erupted like geysers. People still kneeling were swallowed whole, their chants muffled but not silenced as they vanished under the flood. The glass cracked. Rivers forced their way inside, cascading down stairwells, filling the lobby. The mark on the marble hissed as water blurred it into nothing. The phone sparked one last time before dying completely. And still, the flood climbed. Up to my ankles. Up to my knees. Cold as grave dirt. Through the storm's throat, his silhouette descended. Not fully. Just enough. A giant face of cloud and fire, eyes burning golden, mouth wide. Every clap of thunder was his laughter. Kneel. The water surged higher. It wanted me on my knees whether I chose it or not. The lightning inside me burned against the flood, pushing back with heat and sparks. For a moment, the water around me boiled. Steam rose off my skin. It wasn't enough to stop him. But it was enough to hold me standing while the city drowned. And that meant one thing. If I could hold this much, I might be able to throw it. The lobby was no longer a lobby. It was a cistern. Water surged up the marble steps, filling the room like a coffin filling with dirt. Each wave shoved at my legs, bent my knees, tried to drag me under. The chanting outside had gone strange, bubbling through the flood. It was slower now, heavier. Not hecatone. Something longer. Something older. By the time the water reached my chest, every breath burned. The weight of it pressed down like stone, ribs creaking, spine straining. And above me, his face still hung in the storm. Eyes blazing. Mouth wide. Waiting for me to bend. Kneel. The word was no longer sound. It was gravity. It pushed. It demanded. And my body weak, shaking, drowning wanted to obey. The lightning inside me fought it. Every time my knees dipped, sparks shot through my muscles, locking them stiff. It hurt worse than drowning. It felt like being set on fire from the inside out. But it kept me upright. And that defiance made him furious. Through the glass I saw more towers give way, toppling into the flood like felled trees. Bridges snapped. Street lamps ripped free and floated like dead fish. And yet every figure I glimpsed through the water remained kneeling. Bodies bobbing, faces submerged, still bent at the waist. Still chanting. The flood wasn't killing them. It was preserving their worship. The water reached my throat. Every inhale risked a mouthful of flood. Every exhale wasted air I couldn't spare. And still he pressed down, harder and harder, his voice vibrating through the water. Kneel. 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 My chest burned. My vision swam. The lightning inside me flickered. Not steady anymore, but frantic, desperate. It wanted out. It wanted to strike. And I was seconds from drowning. I knew one thing with brutal clarity. If I didn't use it now, I'd never use it at all. The water would win. He would win. And there, choking on storm water, half suffocated, half burned alive. I opened my mouth. Not to breathe. Not to pray. But to let it out. I didn't plan it. I didn't aim. I just screamed underwater and let the lightning tear through my throat. It wasn't words that came out. It was fire. It was thunder. It was every volt I'd stolen, unleashed in one raw convulsion. The flood around me boiled. Steam exploded upward, shattering what glass was left in the tower. The bolt didn't arc random. It found him. Through the storm throat, past the golden eyes, straight into his mouth. The sky convulsed, clouds splitting open as if struck from within. For the first time, his roar wasn't command. It was pain. The whole city shook with it. The power didn't leave cleanly. It clawed me on the way out, shredding nerves, blistering skin. I felt bones crack under the force. My vision went white, then black, then nothing but static. When I came back, I was face down in the flood. Mouth full of blood and water. Chest hollow, shaking, empty. The mark in my palm was no longer glowing. It was burned black. Charred into flesh. But still there. When I lifted my head, the chanting was gone. The kneeling figures outside still knelt, but in silence. Like broken toys, waiting to be wound again. And above them, the storm staggered. The silhouette was still there. But dimmer. Flickering. Zeus had been wounded. The phones rang once. Only once. I crawled to the nearest receiver, picked it up with shaking hands. Static. And then Rourke's voice, faint, rushed. You hit him. Good. But listen to me. You didn't kill him. You only told him you're worth killing personally. The line went dead. And outside, the storm's eyes fixed directly on me. I couldn't stand. My legs were shot through with tremors. Every nerve screamed. The taste of iron filled my mouth, blood, smoke, ozone. The city outside was hushed in a way New York had never been. Not traffic quiet. Not blackout quiet. It was the hush of a hunted animal realizing the predator had noticed. And I was the bait. Floodwater still clung to the lobby, but it didn't ripple anymore. The surface was glass still. When I touched it, it burned. Not heat current. Residual charge from what I'd expelled. And under it, shapes. Not corpses. Not reflections. Faces pressed up against the underside, whispering with mouths that let no bubbles out. I couldn't hear them, but I felt the words pulse through my bones. One of us. One of us. One of us. I tried to flex my hand. The mark, blackened and blistered, twitched. And from the split in the skin, tiny sparks crawled out like insects. They didn't fade. They crawled up my wrist and into my veins. It wasn't possession. It wasn't infection. It was recognition. The lightning remembered me. Then came the sound. Not thunder, something smaller, meaner. All the payphones on the block rang at once. The tower's security lights pulsed in rhythm. Even the Times Square screen's dead since the flood lit back up, but only in white. White faces. Stone. Mouths cracked open like they were about to scream. Dozens, hundreds, a pantheon of frozen witnesses staring down. It wasn't advertising anymore. It was worship. The storm shifted. The eyes still hung there, dimmer but focused. Each flash of lightning closer together, less natural, more deliberate. A Morse code I couldn't yet read. But I knew what it meant. He was gathering. He was coming down. And when he did, he wouldn't send the weather. He'd step onto the street himself. I braced against the wall, shaking, barely able to breathe. I'd hit Zeus once. But I didn't have another strike left in me. And he knew it. At first, I thought it was the flood pulling back. Water sloshed toward the gutters, draining away too clean, too fast. But when the asphalt emerged, it wasn't asphalt anymore. It was marble. White, veined with gold, shining wet like skin. Broad avenues reshaped into something older than the grid. Straight lines bent into concentric circles, roads winding inward to where I was. Every street pointed to the tower. Every block had become an aisle. The kneelers didn't rise. They shifted. Their bodies rotated in perfect unison, foreheads still pressed to the marble. Now all of them faced the tower, arms outstretched, backs arched like worshippers at mass. Some twitched, as though the pose hurt. Some whispered not English, not anything modern. I caught fragments through the glass. Olympos Koronos Basilius. The words burned in my ear, familiar now. Lightning, thunder, king. The storm didn't just hang above. It descended. Clouds poured down between skyscrapers like waterfalls of ash. Where they touched glass, reflections warped. No longer billboards or office lights, but statues. Zeus in every window, every facade. The sky wasn't ceiling anymore. It was his throne room, inverted, spilling into ours. Times Square erupted with light. The billboards blazed awake, not with ads, but with fire script. Runes, jagged, searing, crawling across the screens like veins. One by one, the letters snapped into words I could read. Bow. 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 They flickered faster and faster until the square pulsed with it. A heartbeat of command, synced with the thunder overhead. The marble roads led inward, and I realized with sick clarity. The tower wasn't just a building anymore. It was an altar. The lobby walls stretched upward. Beams groaned as if they were ribs cracking. Water drained through fissures that glowed from beneath. Not electrical. Not geothermal. Lightning. The whole structure was filling with it, waiting for him to channel through. I pressed my burned palm against the glass, staring out at a city remade into a temple. It hit me like a verdict. This wasn't invasion. This wasn't punishment. This was coronation. New York wasn't becoming ruins. It was becoming Olympus. And I was already inside his palace. It wasn't thunder this time. It was footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Each one rattled the marble streets outside, echoed through the warped tower walls. Not dozens. Not hundreds. One pair of steps, and it carried the weight of a collapsing city. The glass of the lobby doors bowed outward, metal frames screeching like tortured animals. Then they folded in, not shattered. Knelt. The structure itself bent into an arch, like a servant lowering its head. Through it came the shape. Not a storm now. Not a face in the sky. A man. If you could call him that. 7 feet, maybe taller. Muscles strung with light instead of sinew. Skin bronze, but alive with crawling sparks beneath. Hair and beard curled in fire-white strands, shifting like cloud tops. And the eyes. Those same storm eyes, no longer distant, now inches above me. Burning, cold, eternal. He ducked slightly under the warped archway and stood in the lobby like he'd always belonged there. Breathing was impossible. Every molecule of oxygen was already claimed. The room tasted like copper and ozone, my tongue swelling against my teeth. The mark in my palm flared, and my whole body seized, as if trying to rise without my will. When he spoke, it wasn't to me alone. It was to the building. To the marble streets. To every kneeling figure outside. This city remembers me. The words were a hammer. Glass cracked, walls bowed, water in the floor quivered to his syllables. He looked down at me then, finally acknowledging. And in a voice that was smaller, sharper, meant just for me, he said. And you. You dared. Every instinct screamed to drop flat, to bow, to kneel like the others. But the mark on my hand throbbed, refused, burned hotter until my knees locked against the command. I couldn't bow. And he saw it. Zeus smiled. Not kindly. Not cruelly. But the way a king smiles at a jester who accidentally said something true. He didn't raise a weapon. Didn't need to. Just opened his hand. And the air moved. Every fluorescent bulb above me burst in sequence, pop 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 pop. Glass raining down, shards sizzling before they even hit the water. The charge crawled up the walls, spiderweb lightning tracing every corner of the lobby. It boxed me in. A cage made of storm. The command. Kneel. It wasn't shouted. It was spoken as casually as ordering coffee. My knees buckled, bones bending like rebar under a cutting torch. The mark in my palm fought back, sparks leaping from flesh, nerve, spine. I tasted blood as my jaw clenched against the pressure. I stayed upright. Barely. Zeus tilted his head, lightning braiding through his beard. For a second, he almost looked pleased. Not because I resisted. But because it meant I could be broken longer. The god wanted a game. He flicked 2 fingers. The water on the floor surged upward like snakes, solid ropes of liquid writhing into shape. Hands, faces, torsos. All those drowned reflections I'd glimpsed beneath the surface now climbing out, dripping and sparking, half human, half storm. They weren't worshippers. They were enforcers. Each one carried the storm inside its chest, glowing like a captive bolt. And they moved toward me, slow, deliberate, as Zeus watched. I swung at the nearest one. My fist passed through its torso, but the lightning inside flared. Burned me worse than fire. The mark on my hand sizzled in answer, feeding me just enough current to stagger it back. But there were 5 more. All circling, jaws opening with that same whisper chant. Bow. 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 Zeus didn't intervene. Didn't strike me down himself. He only watched, testing, studying, waiting to see what I'd do with his borrowed fire. This wasn't execution. This was an audition. They closed in, 6 bodies of water and storm, moving like they'd rehearsed this for centuries. Each one dripped onto the marble floor, and every drop carried a spark. Every spark answered the pulse in my hand. The mark throbbed, begging to be used. One lunged. Its arm was a rope of water, knotted with arcs of blue fire. I caught it without thinking, palm to its chest. The mark flared. A surge leapt out, white hot, not mine but passing through me. The thing convulsed, split open, collapsed into a puddle that hissed itself out of existence. And Zeus laughed. Low. Quiet. Like thunder on the far side of mountains. They weren't sent to kill me. They were sent to teach me. Every time I used the mark, it grew clearer. The sparks didn't just respond, they remembered. Each strike cleaner, each surge stronger. I wasn't burning fuel. I was being trained to conduct. Another came at me. I lashed out again, this time willing the charge forward. It shot from my palm like a whip, carving straight through its torso. It didn't even scream, just dissolved. The others hesitated. But Zeus? He leaned forward, eyes blazing, watching me like a proud father. That smile froze my blood more than the lightning ever could. By the time the 5th went down, I was shaking not from weakness, but from power. It ran in my veins now, snapping at my teeth, curling in my fists. I wanted to strike again. I wanted to keep going. And that's when I understood. The test wasn't about survival. It was about temptation. The more I fought his way, the more I became his. The sixth creature stepped back, lowering itself into a kneel. Not at Zeus. At me. Water poured off its face like tears, lightning curling through its chest, and in that distorted voice it whispered. Basilius. King. The god's title. Spoken to me. Zeus clapped once. The sound cracked the marble floor, rattled my skull. You see? He said. It fits you. And in that moment I realized the worst part. I agreed. The last servant dissolved into steam, leaving the lobby reeking of ozone and wet stone. Only me, the god, and the echoes of my own breathing. The mark pulsed like a second heart. Not hurting. Hungry. Zeus stepped closer, each stride cracking the marble floor. The storm outside leaned with him, pressing against the glass as though the sky itself followed his shoulders. When he stopped, his shadow swallowed me. You bleed lightning, he said. And still you stand. You are mine already. He extended his hand. Palm outward, fingers curled, a mirror of my own branded flesh. The space between us shimmered, every molecule of air buzzing like an invisible wire. Take it, he commanded. And end the crawling years of men. You will not kneel, you will reign. The lobby flickered. In a blink it wasn't marble, but stone. Not modern, ancient columns rising, flames and braziers, people chanting in languages I'd never studied but suddenly understood. At the center of it, me. Not bowing. Not broken. Crowned. The lightning coursed through me in that vision, endless, effortless. I didn't hurt. I didn't hunger. I didn't fail. For the first time in years, I wasn't desperate. I was powerful. This city is already mine, Zeus said. It only waits for a voice to echo my will. Take my hand, mortal, and you will not echo. You will command. The mark on my palm seared like it wanted to leap from my skin into his. The temptation wasn't abstract. It was physical, dragging me forward inch by inch. I tried to step back. I couldn't. The marble floor itself tilted toward him, forcing my balance, pulling me like gravity. And worse. Part of me wanted to let it. To take his hand. To stop being prey and start being storm. He saw the hesitation. He saw the hunger. And he smiled, not triumphant, not cruel. Patient. Like he already knew what choice I'd make. My arm lifted on its own. Every muscle screamed, but not in protest. In craving. The mark glowed white-hot, brighter than the lobby's ruined lights, veins crawling fire all the way up my arm. My hand reached for his. A half-inch gap remained. Static arced between us, tiny bolts snapping skin to skin. The room went dark, every spark drawn into that space between. One touch, and it would be sealed. The phones rang. All of them. Every receiver in the lobby, every metal box bolted to the wall, every payphone outside across the square. A chorus of bells, shrill and desperate, cutting through the god's silence. It was impossible, wires were fried, lines dead since the flood. But they rang anyway. Zeus's face darkened. Not fear, annoyance. As if someone had tapped his shoulder mid-coronation. I snatched a phone before I could think. It was cold as ice, shaking in my grip. Static poured through. Then a whisper, urgent, breaking, barely human. Don't take his hand, kid. That's not power. That's chains. It was Rourke. Alive. Or what was left of him. He'll feed you lightning till you forget you were ever human. Don't you see? He's not offering a throne. He's building a battery. Zeus turned his storm eyes toward the phone in my hand. The receiver burst, molten plastic searing my ear. I dropped it, screaming, palm blistered raw. The god's gaze snapped back to me. His hand still outstretched. Still waiting. "A gnat interrupts," he said. "Do not mistake a buzzing fly for counsel." The temptation wavered now. The mark still pulled me forward, but the words hung heavy. Battery. Not king. Not air. Fuel. I looked at his hand, glowing like a second sun. And for the first time, I saw not salvation, but a socket waiting for a plug. He saw the hesitation shift, the doubt souring my hunger. And his smile faltered. Just for a second. The air still hummed between us, one last spark bridging my hand to his. All I had to do was close the distance. My body leaned toward him. But my mind shaking, bleeding, blistered clawed for an exit. Stall him, I thought. By seconds. Just seconds. I lowered my eyes, let my burned palm hover near his. Close enough to make him believe. I see it," I said, my voice torn raw. "The throne. The city. The crown." I forced the words out like confession. Like surrender. Zeus's gaze softened, if you could call it that. Not mercy, but certainty. "Then take what is already yours." Instead of touching, I asked, "What happens after?" I swallowed the tremor in my voice. "Say I take it. Say I reign. What then?" For the first time since he entered the tower, Zeus didn't answer immediately. His eyes narrowed, stormlight flickering. He wasn't used to questions. He was used to obedience. "Finally," he said. "Then you will burn until the end of the age. And the world will bow because it cannot look at you without fear." The way he said it calm, absolute, made my stomach turn. No promise of peace. No promise of joy. Just burn. And rule by terror. Outside, the storm rattled harder, almost frantic, pounding glass and steel as though trying to drown out his words. The city was straining under him like something in it still resisted. And I realized, it wasn't just me stalling. The city itself was buying time. Zeus stepped closer, bridging the half-inch gap himself. The storm surged in his hand, blinding white. "Enough questions. Choose." The marble cracked under his foot. The mark in my palm screamed like a nerve set on fire. I had seconds left. His hand was there. An inch from mine. The air between us was a blade made of light, cutting both ways. "Choose," he commanded. And I did. I chose wrong on purpose. Instead of laying my palm in his, I clenched it into a fist. The mark flared, and for the first time I didn't let it guide me. I forced it. I wrenched the current inward, choking the lightning until it had nowhere to go but back out, not as surrender. As a strike. I drove my fist forward. Not into his hand. Into his chest. The mark exploded. White fire shot through me, out of me, into him. The sound was beyond thunder. A crack that ripped marble, glass, and bone all at once. Zeus staggered. Only a step, but enough to shake the entire tower. Lightning bled from the wound I'd left, a hairline fracture across his ribs, glowing like magma under skin. I dropped to my knees, not from obedience but from backlash. The surge gutted me, hollowed me, left every nerve screaming raw. My nose poured blood. My vision swam black. But I'd done it. I'd hurt him. For the first time, the smile was gone. Not anger. Disbelief. The god looked down at the crack in his chest like a man finding his own blood for the first time. Then his eyes snapped back to me, stormlight flaring hotter than ever. "You dare." It wasn't a question. It was the opening of a sentence. And the end of a world. I thought the worst of it was over when I made it past the night of sirens and thunder. But Times Square doesn't let go easy. Once you're marked, you're marked. The sky's been wrong for days now. Not just over me, over the whole city. Folks in Midtown mutter about static headaches or how their phones die even at 80%. Tourists say the lights on Broadway look dimmer, though the bulbs burn just as bright. I know better. It's not the lights that are dimming. It's the space between them. I stuck to the rules like they were scripture. Every one of them burned into me like scars. Don't talk about the thunder. Don't look up when the clouds flicker. Don't touch the payphone after 2 a.m. Don't, under any circumstances, walk beneath the Jumbotron when it goes dark. So I did what I was told. Night after night. But the rules ain't enough anymore. Not since I started hearing him. It wasn't words at first. More like pressure in my ears, like when a subway car brakes too fast. Then came the whispers. Low, guttural, not English, not Greek, something older than both. They rose from the manhole grates, slipped down from the blinking billboards, filled the empty alleys where rats scurried at my passing. I thought I was losing my mind until I realized the whispers weren't in my head. They were answering questions I hadn't asked yet. And that's how I figured out the secret. Zeus doesn't just want worship. He wants acknowledgement. Recognition. If you deny him, he gets mean. If you see him, but don't bow, he breaks you. That's why the rules are so damn precise. They don't protect you by fighting him off, they protect you by making sure you never draw his attention. But I slipped. Last night, near 45th and Broadway, the Jumbotron glitched. A 3-second blackout, then the whole screen lit up, not with ads, not with stock tickers, but with a storm. A real one, lightning snapping across a black sky, bolts so bright they seared the square in white blue. I didn't look up. I swear I didn't. But the puddle at my feet reflected the whole thing. My own face staring back at me with eyes too wide, and behind it, a figure cut from storm clouds and bone-white fire. I shut my eyes and stepped back. Too late. The whispers grew louder. They weren't whispers anymore. They were commands. Acknowledge. Name. Serve. I wanted to run, but my legs froze. That's when I remembered what the local old earl from the pawn shop had told me weeks back: Zeus don't ask. Zeus demands. But if you answer, even once, you're his forever. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood, kept my mouth clamped shut until the lights returned to normal. When they did, the square was empty. Not a single car, not a tourist, not a cop. Just me, standing alone beneath the endless gaze of screens. And then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. When I turned, I saw him. Not full, not yet. Just a man in a gray suit, umbrella hooked on his arm though it hadn't rained in hours. His smile stretched too wide, like he knew I had broken something just by seeing him in the reflection. "You've lasted longer than most," he said. His voice was thunder in miniature, rolling low, vibrating my ribs. "But you'll slip again. They always do." He tipped the umbrella, turned, and walked into the crowd that wasn't there until he moved through it. And then Times Square came alive again. Taxis honking. People laughing. Music blaring. All normal, like nothing had happened. Except now I know, Zeus is watching me directly. The rules won't hold forever. And when the storm comes down, it's not just me he'll take. It'll be the whole city. I kept telling myself that if I stayed quiet, if I just followed the damn rules to the letter, I could ride this out. Finish the contract, take the paycheck, get out. That was before Zeus looked straight at me. The rules don't cover what happens when he notices you. They're designed for shadows, for reflections, for catching him at the edges of your eye. But now, Now the storm isn't skirting the skyline. It's parked above me. I worked the shift like normal. Sat in the booth, scanned the cameras, made my rounds. But something's different. It's not just the hum of the neon, or the restless shuffle of tourists. It's the air. Like the whole square is holding its breath, waiting. 2 a.m. came and I checked the payphone like always. Rule 3, don't touch it. Easy enough. But this time it was already off the hook. The receiver dangled and swung, clacking soft against the metal. No one around, not a soul in sight. The line buzzed faint, like bees trapped in glass. I backed away, counted to 30, and waited for the click that always came when the line reset. But it didn't. The buzzing grew louder. Louder until it filled the square. I covered my ears, but it was inside me like my teeth were shaking, like the fillings in my molars were tuning forks. And then the voice came through. Storm bearer. Thunder friend. Name me. I ran. Not smart, I know, but my body moved before my brain could stop it. I sprinted past the Broadway steps, past the glowing billboards, right up to the edge of the barricades where the workers leave their gear. The night guard stared at me like I'd lost it, but none of them touched the phone. I didn't sleep when I got back to the booth. I sat there, shaking, waiting for sunrise. When it finally came, I thought maybe I'd dreamed it all. Until I saw the new sheet of paper slipped under the booth door. Same typewriter font. No signature. Just new text added to the list. Rule 5, if the payphone is off the hook after 2 a.m., do not hang it up. Do not answer it. Leave the square immediately. That rule wasn't there yesterday. The system's changing. Adapting. It knows I saw him. And if the rules are rewriting themselves while I'm still in the middle of this job, then the question isn't whether I'll slip. It's when. I didn't want to come back after the payphone incident. Every bone in me screamed to quit, take the bus back to Jersey, vanish into some warehouse job where the worst thing that could happen was a forklift accident. But then I thought of the paycheck. I thought of the rent I hadn't paid, the bills stacking up, the eviction notice that could come any day now. That's how they keep you here. Not with chains, not with contracts. With hunger. With debt. So I showed up again, even after they rewrote the rules. And sure enough, the night started with everything wrong. The square was crowded past midnight, not unusual for tourists, but something about the way they moved set me on edge. Everyone walked the same rhythm, like they were marching to some beat only they could hear. No laughter, no chatter, just the shuffle of feet on concrete. Rule 1 says not to look at the thunder. Easy enough. But the thunder wasn't in the sky tonight. It was in the crowd. The tourists' mouths opened, sound spilling out in cracks and booms. Every step they took hit like distant thunderclaps. I ducked my head, pushed past them, told myself they weren't real. But then Rule 4 kicked in: never stand beneath the Jumbotron when it goes dark. And of course, that's when it blinked out. 1 second it was ads for soda, sneakers, and streaming shows. The next, pure black. My body froze under it. The crowd stopped too, hundreds of heads snapping up in unison. Their eyes glowed faint, electric white. I knew I had to move, but the problem was the rules were contradicting each other. If I ran, I'd break Rule 1, because the thunder was all around me, inside those open mouths. If I stayed still, I'd break Rule 4, because the Jumbotron was black and humming overhead. For the first time, the rules gave me no way out. The air split open with lightning that didn't come from the sky, it came from the billboards, the neon, the LED lights. A jagged bolt shot down Broadway, frying every screen into static. The smell of burning plastic filled my nose. And then silence. The crowd froze, statues in the middle of Times Square. Their mouths still hung open, but the thunder had stopped. Slowly, one by one, they turned their heads to face me. Not random strangers. Not tourists. But the other guards. The street cleaners. The vendors. People I knew. Their eyes were the same white glow, their mouths still open. And I swear I heard it again, that same command, layered through every throat at once. Name me. I ran for the booth. Locked the door. Tried not to breathe. When I looked up at the rule sheet on the wall, I saw new ink burned across the page like lightning scars. Rule 6, if rules conflict, survival is still possible. Choose reverence over defiance. I stared at it until my eyes watered. That wasn't a rule. That was a warning. The system isn't breaking. It's being rewritten by him. And it's only a matter of time before reverence means more than silence. I stared at that new line on the paper until my eyes blurred, choose reverence over defiance. That wasn't company policy. That wasn't some safety memo. That was Zeus himself, reaching into my world, shaping the rules. It put me in a corner. Because reverence means recognition. And recognition means he owns you. Still, the night doesn't stop. The city keeps breathing, whether you like it or not. I forced myself back onto patrol, boots crunching over the grid of Broadway, eyes down like always. I made it to the corner near 7th Avenue when I heard it, a sound like chains rattling against metal. I froze. It wasn't coming from the subway grates, wasn't traffic either. It was above me. I looked up mistake and saw one of the billboards. The kind with rotating ads. Only it wasn't cycling through Soda and Broadway shows anymore. It was flashing images of storms, mountains, temples. Real old world stuff. Lightning bolts carved in stone. And standing in the center of it all was him. Not full-form Zeus. Not the figure in Fire I'd glimpsed in puddles. Just a man in a black suit, silver tie, holding that damned umbrella. But the billboard stretched his shadow across the whole square like a storm front. He lifted his hand. Snapped his fingers. Every light in Times Square cut out at once. The billboards, the neon, the traffic signals. Gone. Dead. The kind of blackout New York hasn't seen since '77. That's when I had to decide, defy or revere. If I defied, I'd treat him like nothing, keep walking, eyes down, pretend he wasn't there. That's how the rules used to work. But now, every instinct in me said it would kill me where I stood. So I tried reverence. I didn't kneel, I couldn't. My pride wouldn't let me. But I did what I could. I stopped. Stood still. Bowed my head just enough, like a man at a grave. Not worship, not prayer. Just acknowledgement. The air shifted. The thunder in my skull eased. When I looked up, the billboard flickered back to an ad for toothpaste. The lights came alive across the square, every screen stuttering back to life. And the crowd, they were back, tourists laughing, taxis honking, everything normal again. Except for one thing. When I returned to the booth, another rule was waiting. Burned in at the bottom like all the others. Rule 7, when the storm calls for reverence, bow your head. Once you kneel, you will never stand again. My stomach dropped. Because that meant someone, at some point, had knelt. And they'd never come back from it. I don't know how long I can thread this needle, bow enough to survive, but not enough to belong to him. But Zeus is tightening the leash. And one of these nights, he won't accept anything short of worship. I wasn't the only one working that night. People forget how many ghosts Times Square needs to keep it running. The janitors, the food cart guys, the camera hustlers dressed like Spider-Man. Then there's the other guards, the ones they never really introduce you to, just nameless shadows in different booths. One of them was Ray. Mid-50s, worked the graveyard shift for years. Balding, heavy-set, chain smoker. I'd seen him around, but we never talked much. Last night, we crossed paths near the barricades, and I knew right away something was off. He looked hollow. Eyes ringed dark, like he hadn't slept in days. His walk was stiff, deliberate, like every step cost him. He muttered something when he passed me. At first I thought it was small talk, but when I caught the words, my stomach flipped. Storm's calling. Storm's calling. I froze. I wanted to drag him back, shake him, remind him of the rules. But I couldn't get a word out before it started. The Jumbotron glitched sudden blackout, sharp as a gunshot. Rule 4. The square fell silent. Every tourist in sight stopped moving. Heads tilted back, mouths opening. The thunder in their throats rolled like an oncoming train. And Ray didn't bow. He didn't look away either. He dropped straight to his knees in the middle of Broadway. The effect was instant. The tourists around him froze mid-gesture. Then, one by one, they turned toward him. Their mouths still open, but no sound now. Just that glow in their eyes, pure electric white. And then the lightning came down. Not from the sky, not from the screens from Ray himself. A bolt cracked across his back, lifting him off the ground. His scream wasn't human. It was thunder. When he hit the pavement again, he wasn't Ray anymore. His body still there, twitching, smoking, but his eyes were lit like burning filaments. His mouth moved without words, like he was chewing storm clouds. The tourists or whatever they really are circled him. Bowed their heads in unison. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The blackout ended as fast as it began. Lights blazed back across the square. The crowd laughed again, taxis honked, a bus rolled through. Normalcy, the mask slipped back on. But Ray wasn't there. Not his body. Not even a scorch mark. Back in my booth, I found the rules waiting. Another new line, etched deep like it had always been there. Rule 8, those who kneel do not return. They walk with him forever. I sat there until dawn, staring at it. Because the truth hit me like a bolt. The rules aren't just guidelines. They're scripture. And every night, Zeus writes another verse. And he's writing them with our lives. I swore to myself after Ray disappeared that I wouldn't let the storm corner me like that. Bow your head, fine. Bite your tongue, fine. But I'll never drop to my knees. That promise didn't last long. The night started quiet, almost too quiet. No glitches on the boards, no crowds moving in unison, no thunder humming from the grates. For the first 2 hours, I almost convinced myself maybe it was easing up. Maybe Zeus was satisfied with taking Ray. Then, 2 a.m. came. I made my way past the payphone. Rule 5 echoed in my head: if it's off the hook, leave immediately. I half expected it to be dangling again. But it wasn't. It was perfectly still, receiver resting in its cradle. What wasn't normal was the dial tone. I could hear it. From halfway across the square. Loud as a church bell, ringing through the empty streets. And with every ring, my knees buckled. Not metaphorical. My legs physically bent, like invisible hands were pressing down on my shoulders, shoving me toward the pavement. My body strained to resist, thighs burning, jaw clenched. Sweat poured down my face as the pressure increased. Bow, the voice whispered. Not in my head. From the phone itself. The dial tone was talking to me, each beep twisting into syllables. Bow. Kneel. Serve. The ground trembled. The lights overhead flickered. I could feel the moment, that razor-thin second where my legs were about to give. And then I remembered Rule 6. Choose reverence over defiance. So I did the only thing I could. I bowed my head. Not a full kneel. Not surrender. Just bent my neck forward, eyes fixed on the ground. The pressure eased immediately. The dial tone cut out. The weight lifted. When I dared look back up, the phone was silent. Dead. But the square wasn't empty anymore. Every billboard, every LED screen, every scrolling ticker showed the same thing, a mountain peak surrounded by black clouds. At the summit stood a man, arm raised, lightning in his grip. The screens flickered, then one by one returned to normal. I staggered back to the booth. Heart pounding. Legs shaking. And sure enough, another line was waiting on the rule sheet. Rule 9, if the storm pushes you to your knees, bow your head instead. Never let him have both your body and your will. I collapsed in the chair. Because I realized something sickening. The rules aren't about survival anymore. They're about compromise. Inch by inch, night by night, Zeus is whittling us down. Not killing us outright. Bending us until kneeling feels easier than standing. And one of these nights, bowing won't be enough. After Ray, I thought the others would wise up. That they'd see the rules the way I do now, not as suggestions, but as lifelines. Turns out I was wrong. There was this kid, Marcus. Barely 20. New hire, still green. He treated the rules like a joke, muttering about union contracts and how the company was probably screwing with us. Spook stories to keep us from slacking, he said. The night after the payphone tried to put me on my knees, I spotted him leaning against a barricade, scrolling on his phone, ignoring everything. Don't stand under the jumbotron when it blacks out, I told him. Don't even risk it. He laughed in my face. Man, I've been here 3 weeks and haven't seen it flicker once. And like fate was listening, the jumbotron went dead right then. Pitch black. The tourists froze. Their mouths opened. The thunder began rolling. Just a power cycle, Marcus muttered. But his hands shook. His phone slipped out of his grip, clattering onto the pavement. The crowd turned. All at once. Hundreds of glowing eyes, fixed on him. I hissed, bow your head. But he didn't. His pride got in the way. He stood taller, squared his shoulders, defied it. That was all it took. The tourists opened their mouths wider than jaws should go. And the thunder poured out, not sound this time, but lightning. Bolts of pure white arced from their throats, striking Marcus again and again. He convulsed, screaming, smoke rising off his jacket. And then he dropped. The thunder stopped. The crowd went still. When Marcus lifted his head, his eyes glowed like broken light bulbs. His skin cracked in thin, jagged lines, glowing faint blue. He wasn't Marcus anymore. He rose to his feet, stiff as a puppet. Walked straight into the square, mouth hanging open. The crowd parted for him, like he belonged to them now. And when the jumbotron blinked back on, he was gone. I staggered back to the booth, heart slamming. My hands shook so hard I nearly ripped the rule sheet down. But I didn't need to. The new line was already seared into the bottom. Rule 10, mockery is defiance. Defiance is death. When others fall, do not speak their names again. So that's how it is. Ray is gone. Marcus is gone. And I can't even remember them out loud. I wrote their names in the corner of my notebook anyway. Small, hidden. Just to prove I could. But as I closed the book, I swear I heard thunder rumble, clear sky or not. Like Zeus knew. Like he was warning me, don't test me again. It happened at 3:17 a.m. I know the exact time because every screen in Times Square froze, then glitched, then displayed the numbers in huge red font, 3:17. I thought it was another blackout, another test. But then the air thickened. The kind of pressure you feel before a tornado, when the sky drops heavy and electric. The crowd of tourists or whatever they are went silent mid-step. Froze. turned their faces toward the center of the square. I followed their gaze. And he was there. Not a reflection, not a shadow, not a figure blurred by neon haze. Zeus walked across the asphalt like he owned it. Tall, sharp, wearing that black suit and silver tie. The umbrella tapped against the ground in rhythm with my pulse. But it wasn't the man that froze me. It was the storm inside him. Every billboard flickered to match his stride. One moment he was flesh and fabric, the next a silhouette made of lightning, shifting with each step. His face blurred, morphing between human and something carved in stone, crowned in cloud. The crowd dropped to their knees in perfect unison. Every single one. I didn't. Couldn't. My body shook, but I forced myself to stand. Bowed my head, like Rule 9 allowed. Not surrender. Just reverence. His footsteps stopped inches from me. The umbrella tip clicked against the pavement. You resist, he said. His voice was thunder, rolling through my bones. Yet you stand. Why? I couldn't answer. My throat locked up. Lightning cracked across the billboards. His face flickered in 20-story loops, each screen a different version of him: king, storm, shadow, man. Answer, he demanded. And before I could stop myself, the words tumbled out, because kneeling means I don't get back up. Silence. Then laughter. Low, rolling, like distant thunder. He leaned close. The scent of ozone filled my nose. You understand. When he stepped back, the pressure lifted. The tourists rose. The screens blinked back to commercials and ads like nothing happened. But back in my booth, the rules had changed again. Burned deeper than ever, like scars across the page. Rule 11, when he walks among you, speak only truth. He rewards reverence. He destroys liars. I collapsed into the chair, heart still rattling. Because now it's not just survival. Now it's dialogue. He's talking to me. Testing me. And the storm isn't watching from above anymore. It's walking Times Square. The city didn't wake up the next morning the way it should have. Times Square looked normal enough: the endless billboards screaming, taxis fighting their way through puddled streets, tourists clogging the sidewalks. But underneath it, something was wrong. Too quiet, even in the noise. The day shift guard, Terry, leaned against the booth sipping his coffee. He didn't mention the storm, didn't mention the way Zeus had stood in the square last night. He just grumbled about his bad back and muttered how management keeps screwing the schedule. Either he didn't see it, or he'd learned not to talk. By evening, when I signed in again, my stomach had already soured. I checked the rules sheet automatically. Still 11 rules. Rule 11 glared at me like a new scar. When he walks among you, speak only truth. He rewards reverence. He destroys liars. My throat tightened just reading it. At 1 a.m., the first sign came. A man in a soaked business suit stumbled across the square, eyes wide, lips moving fast. He staggered up to my booth, pounded on the glass. Please, he begged. I just need to use your phone. My wife. He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes darted up, like he'd seen something overhead. Then he whispered, I can't say it. He won't let me lie. The words chilled me more than the storm ever had. I cracked the booth door. Who? He flinched. His mouth worked like he wanted to say something else, then his face twisted in pain. His tongue swelled, lips split. His skin actually smoked, like static arced beneath it. And then he screamed. Lightning ripped across the sky, though no clouds had gathered. His body convulsed, lifted clean off the pavement, then slammed down smoking. The stench of burnt hair filled the square. I slammed the door shut. Heart pounding, hands shaking. The screens around me flickered. Commercials froze. Every billboard displayed the same sentence, white text on black background. Only truth. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. A crackle of electricity whispered through the booth intercom though no one had pressed the button. Your turn, a voice rumbled. I don't know if it came from the intercom, or the storm, or inside my own head. But I knew the test was coming. And when Zeus asks, you can't lie. I barely had time to wipe the sweat from my palms before the storm answered me. The square went dead still. No taxis, no chatter, no buskers drumming plastic buckets. Just silence. Like the city itself was holding its breath. And then the lights shifted. The billboards didn't cut to black this time, they all showed the same scene, multiplied 100 times around me. A throne of stone, high above clouds. Lightning dancing at its edges. A figure seated there, shadows too thick to see clearly. But the eyes burned through every screen, pinning me like a bug. The voice that followed shook in my bones, not my ears. Speak truth. My lips went dry. My chest locked. The intercom light blinked red though no one was near the booth. The microphone hummed with live static, demanding an answer. A test. I knew it. Rule 11 wasn't just about liars. It was about survival. The voice came again, each word like a hammer. Why are you here? Easy. A fact. I swallowed hard, leaned close to the mic. Working. Security. Night shift. The air crackled but didn't strike. The question shifted. What do you fear? My mind scattered. I wanted to say nothing, wanted to bluff. But even the thought of lying made the hair rise on my arms, static pressing against my skin. Him, I whispered. I fear you. The storm above pulsed brighter. The screens flickered, showing a crack of a smile in the shadows. And then. What do you worship? That one cut deep. My chest locked, because I had no good answer. I hadn't prayed in years. No gods, no saints. Not since the debts piled, not since nights sleeping in my car. The static clawed at me, hissing against my eardrums. My tongue felt swollen, ready to burst like the man in the suit. I forced the words out raw, scraped from my gut. Survival. I worship survival. The city went black. Every light, every billboard, every street lamp died at once. Only the electric blue crackle of the storm remained, outlining his massive shape in the sky, closer now than he had ever been. And then, thunder like laughter. We shall see. The billboards all blinked back on at once, each one showing a different reflection of me in the booth. Only not me. Not exactly. Some versions were already burned, some swollen, some broken by lightning. And they all mouthed the same thing in unison. You can't lie anymore. The reflections didn't fade. Every screen kept showing me different versions of me dying in ways I hadn't yet. My chest burned just looking at them. My pulse refused to slow. The intercom light blinked again. More. The next question came like thunder ripping through my ribs. What sin stains you most? My first instinct was to say nothing. To close my mouth and shake my head. But silence had weight too. I felt the pressure building in the booth, static rattling the glass, ready to burst. Neglect, I whispered. My brother needed me, and I wasn't there. I buried myself in work. The storm didn't strike. Not yet. But one reflection, one of the screens twisted, and in it my brother's face replaced mine. Pale. Drained. Dead. I turned away, bile in my throat. Who do you serve? The air in the booth was electric now, buzzing like hornets in a jar. My teeth ached. My vision blurred. I wanted to say nobody. to cling to the idea that I was my own man. But I remembered the smirk in the lightning. The bodies left smoking in the square. I serve the rules, I said. The screens rippled, glitching. Some showed approval. Others cracked in static. A voice like rolling thunder. And if I break the rules? That question split me open. My throat locked. There was no right answer. If I said you can't, I'd be struck down. If I said then I die, it was surrender. I forced myself to breathe. Forced myself to remember the patterns, the warnings, the way every rule had revealed itself through trial. You already have, I said, voice trembling but steady. And I'm still here. For a moment, silence. No lightning. No storm. Then the laughter again, so loud the booth walls shook, so violent my bones rattled in their sockets. Then endure. And just like that, the storm collapsed. The billboards flashed back to perfume ads and Broadway musicals. Traffic noise bled back in, a taxi horn wailing as if nothing had happened. But my mouth wouldn't close. Because the intercom light was still red. The line was still live. And deep down, I knew the trial wasn't over. It was only paused. The booth clock said 3:07 a.m. I sat in the chair, shaking, sweat plastering my shirt to my back. The intercom still glowed red. I didn't touch it, but I knew it was listening. Knew he was listening. Outside, Times Square looked alive again. Tourists laughed, couples posed for photos, yellow cabs nosed through the intersection. But their faces didn't look real. Their eyes flicked to me, every single one of them, like puppets waiting for my cue. The storm had gone quiet above, but I felt it humming in the ground, waiting. And then the voice again. One last truth. My heart stopped. I knew this was the end game. The hidden rule. The voice rumbled through the glass, through the concrete, through my skull. Why do you live? Not how. Not for whom. Why? My lips trembled. Because I have to. Because I owe money. Because I'm afraid. Each thought burned as soon as it formed. I knew that the wrong truth was as deadly as a lie. The screens shifted. Every billboard turned black except one, the massive curved screen above 45th. It showed me sitting in the booth right now, mouth opening, eyes wild. Only in that version, I said nothing. I stayed silent. And in seconds, the reflection charred to ash. I gripped the desk so hard my nails cracked. Why do I live? The storm sparked faintly above, blue veins crawling through a cloudless sky. I could feel my time draining. Then I remembered. The pattern of the rules. How they weren't about control, not really, they were about recognition. Respect. Zeus didn't demand perfection. He demanded acknowledgement. That was the current running through all of it. So I leaned forward. Voice raw. I live because I refuse to stop. Because the world keeps trying to break me, and I keep standing. That's it. That's the truth. The silence that followed was endless. Crushing. And then the screens all blinked white. Every single one. Not ads, not reflections. Just blinding light. The intercom clicked off. The red glow died. And in the whiteout, carved across every screen like a brand, the hidden 12th rule burned into view. Rule 12, to live is to defy. Do not kneel, even to the storm. The storm above cracked wide open. But this time, the lightning didn't strike me. It arced around the square in a perfect ring, enclosing me, but not touching me. Zeus had his answer. And I had the rule no one had written down. The storm ended with a breath. One moment the sky was clawed open, lightning wrapped around the square like a crown of fire. The next, it was gone. Not faded. Gone. The screen sputtered back to perfume ads and soft drinks. Traffic picked up as if it had been waiting at the edges of time, drivers leaning on horns like nothing had happened. The crowd poured in again, alive and chattering. But they didn't look at me anymore. For the first time in months, no eyes followed me. No shadows leaned at the edges of the square. The booth was just a booth again. I sat there until dawn, heart steadying, chest rising and falling like I'd just crawled out of the ocean. When Terry came to relieve me, he didn't say a word. He handed me a coffee, lukewarm and stale. He saw something in my face, I think. He didn't ask. The rules list was still tacked to the wall. 11 neat points, typed up and laminated. Rule 12 wasn't there. It never would be. That one wasn't for paper. It was for blood and thunder and bone. Rule 12, to live is to defy. Do not kneel, even to the storm. I write this down now because someone else will take that job. Someone desperate enough to ignore the warning signs. Someone who'll see the pay and the easy application and think, what's the catch? This is the catch. Don't lie when he asks. Don't look up when the sky screams. Don't answer the phone after midnight. Don't run when the air tastes like copper. But above all, don't kneel. That's the part nobody told me. That's the part they can't tell you, because the system depends on silence. If you kneel, you're gone. If you bow, you're ash. But if you stand, if you tell him the raw truth of your existence, no matter how ugly, even Zeus himself has to recognize it. The storm bends. Just enough for you to walk away. I still work the booth sometimes. Fewer nights now. I keep my distance, but I know the patterns, and the patterns know me. I live. That's enough. And if you ever find yourself standing in Times Square at 3 a.m., lights humming wrong, air heavy with copper, remember this. Don't lie. Don't kneel. And whatever you do, don't let the storm trick you into silence. Because silence is the loudest death there is.